evening. Call to order the meeting of October 17th. If you join us for Pledge Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are not on live BCAT. We are on film, and they'll probably replay it tomorrow when people expect it to be live. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, would you like a
Motion to take 7A out of order.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to take item 7A out of order. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 700, Noel. Continue public hearing, application for approval of special permit pursuant to section 6.1.2, non-conforming structures and premises of the zoning bylaws, 121 Lexington Street, 121 Lexington Street Realty Trust applicant.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of November 1st, 2018, as requested by the applicant's attorney in an email dated October 17th, 2018.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 700. Citizens' time. Anyone here to speak on a matter that is not on our agenda? Seeing none. Announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a reminder that to the board that Josh and I will be at the Southern New England Planning Conference tomorrow and Friday.
Take good notes and come back with a lot of information for us.
We will. Next, it's Trucktober Food Truck Festival on the Common this Saturday from 11 to 3. And then a townwide flu clinic, October 20th, 12 to 3 at Memorial School. And early voting begins. Hopefully, well, no, today we still have a couple hours to register. Today is the
Until
last day
8
to vote
o'clock.
in Massachusetts. But early voting begins on October 22nd and runs through November 2nd. And that's in the town clerk's office. And lastly, the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee will have its first meeting on October 24th at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Annex basement.
Any other announcement I would like, if anyone's not heard, that longtime town meeting member Virginia Mooney passed away earlier. We had former selectman, and to her family, our condolences, and we will miss her. She's been a major part of the community for many years. True. Legal notices, there are none. Non-approvals, okay. We have a non-approval here. This is application for endorsement of a plan believed not to require approval. 154-160 Cambridge Street, Heritage Trail LLC applicant. And when I was first in town attending these meetings, I wondered why we were approving something that didn't require approval. And to the people who are wondering that is, it simply means it doesn't require approval under the Subdivision Control Act. It still requires some form of approval. Every once in a while, it's good to let people know why we're approving a non-approval.
I have to do that all the time to the younger engineers in my office. But anyway, good evening. My name is Frank DePietro. I'm with the VSC Group. I'm here tonight representing Heritage Trail LLC as they want to subdivide their property, the former Building 19 and a half site, 154-160 Cambridge Street. And really, there's two reasons for the modification of the lot lines. One is to separate, if you remember, we've got a residential section and commercial section, so we're going to have that line. The second is, I can say with great happiness, the Mass DOT has approved the right-of-way adjustment on Cambridge, and it's actually filed the deed information at the Registry of Deeds, so the front property line now, which is shown in orange on that plan, is in fact the new right-of-way line. The blue line is the subdivision between the two lots for the residential and commercial. It meets all the standards, and be happy to answer any questions.
So you end up with two separate lots?
That's correct.
it.
And the blue line is about 2 feet off of the retaining wall, so that in case the site ever got separated, one property would have full responsibility for the maintenance for the retaining wall.
And which side of the retaining wall is the blue line, the north or the south?
It's on the south side, it's on the retail side of the site.
So the retaining wall stays as part of the residential component.
That's correct. No, I'm sorry, the wall will be the retail, not, the retaining wall will be part of the retail site.
Retail site, okay.
Retail, not the residential site.
Okay.
It's on the
So
south
the
side.
line is on the south side, the wall is on the north side.
No,
The wall is on the south side of the line.
Right. Okay, by 2 feet,
right.
all right?
Good.
That's my story for today.
Okay, staff?
No concern.
No concerns with this, all righty.
Just a quick question, and Frank may or may not be able to answer this, but what's the intent, what's the, with
Joe,
that
could you pull
wall-
your mic a little closer?
Sure. With that wall, is there any plan to plantings, trees, or whatnot around that wall, or is that kind of, see is what you get?
The wall between the two sites is essentially, it's a vertical wall. There's a little bit of a slope to it, but it's a vertical wall. There'll be plantings at the bottom.
There's a tiered, it's kind of tiered, right?
The wall along the front, so along the edge of the retail and along Cambridge Street, that's tiered until it basically goes down into the existing grade as you go up the hill,
Right.
as you go south. So there is plantings, and there will be plantings along the wall along Cambridge Street, but not between the two sites.
Okay, do we have a scheme, planting scheme on
There's
there?
a landscape plan with the
Yes.
site
Yeah.
plan, we can email it to you.
Would you email it to me as well, please? Thank you. I also have a question that's, oh,
Paul?
sorry.
No, I was just wondering about the sidewalk along Cambridge Street. It doesn't look like there's any activity there.
The holdup in that is National Grid. If you remember, or you may not, but when we put in the water line connections last year, we found that the water line was about 6 inches. It was in that slope that went right down to the edge of the roadway. It's about 6 inches above the proposed grade of the new roadway.
That's not
And it
good.
should have had 2 foot of cover, it did not. Mr. Duffy was unlucky. We finally got National Grid to agree in May to relocate that, and they went on strike in June. They were back for a couple of days, a week or so ago, and there was the issue in Woburn. So there will be a sidewalk there. The plan was to actually do all that work this fall, the widening of the roadway, not the signal, but put the foundation in, put the sidewalk in. It's looking a little doubtful now because there's about 150 feet of that existing gas line. It's a 6-inch high-pressure gas line that feeds all of Cambridge Street that needs to be lowered.
You
So-
used the word strike, Frank, I think you meant lockout.
Yes, I'm sorry, excuse me.
I won't wait for it if it's gonna take National Grid to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there was discussion, we could do some of the work, but it's not efficient to start part of it and stop. So the sidewalk will be done as part of the work. There's a contractor ready to go once National Grid moves.
Anything
Thank
further,
you.
Paul?
Nope.
Barbara?
I don't have any questions about this specific approval not required, but I was wondering if you could update us on the status of the traffic light.
It's all approved. As a matter of fact, we're turning in the shop drawings for the traffic light. It'll be consistent with the other adaptive signals in that area. And presuming we can get the folks at National Grid to work, we'll put that in. We're gonna try to put the foundation for that wall in this fall, which we can certainly do, because that's not in the area of the gas line. We'll be ordering the parts. It takes about 3 to 6 months to get the mast arms and some of the parts. So that light will be coming in next spring sometime.
So it'll be operational when the site opens?
It will be operational when the retail site opens. It probably won't be operational when the residential site opens.
I understand, thank you.
And it will be consistent with the other black kind of period or historic-looking lights?
Yes,
Yeah.
that was the intent, yes.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, Carol?
I'm all set.
Bill?
No, said thank you.
Set, thank you. All righty, can I have a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve and sign an approval not required plan entitled Approval Not Required Subdivision Plan 154-166 Cambridge Street and 1-5 Center Street, prepared by BSC Group dated October 3rd, 2018, reflecting the subdivision of assessors parcels 245-0, 245-1, 245-2, and 245-4, shown on Assessors Map 23, into Lot A, 94,000 square feet, and Lot B, 201,731 square feet. The planning board finds that this is a proper submission of an approval not required plan. The applicant shall submit 4 copies in an electronic PDF of the endorsed approval not required plan to the planning board office within 4 weeks of this approval. Proof of recording with the registry of deeds shall be provided to the planning department upon completion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Question, what's this 15 Center Street? When did that get added to this, or does this, is part of this on, fronting on Center
15
Street?
Center Street was where Captain
Oh.
Pizza and the Florist?
Yes.
That's a Center Street
That
address,
was the
okay.
address, for that building.
So that has been captured into,
This is
The
incorporated
second lot.
into Lot B, I believe it is.
all right. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 700, Noel. Thank you,
Thank you very
Frank.
much.
Thank you, Frank.
Administrative matters, discussion, application for approval of minor engineering change, 10 and 12 Murray Ave. Immediate Management Company is the applicant.
Good evening.
Good
My name
evening.
is Al Galla from Galla Simon and Associates.
Okay,
The,
Al, if you make sure the microphone is close so the BCAT can pick up
guess.
your voice.
Okay, very good. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about a project. It's basically consists of a replacement of retaining wall at the rear of number 10 and 12 Murray Road. The existing wall that's there is very close to a deck on one of the units. So we'd like to demolish a portion of it and create new walls approximately 5 feet away from the existing wall. Those are highlighted in the dark thick line. Above that, towards Maryvale Road, we'd like to change the grading to 2 to 1 and seed it, grass it. All erosion control measures will be in place, as well as protecting the catch basins that are on the roadway, also protecting the units that are downstream. Second piece of this project involves improvements on Maryvale Road. What's happening there now is runoff from the roadway basically spills over the Cape Cod curbing, and there's a catch basin that's just not catching the water. So that creates runoff that runs down to the property. So to change that, we'd like to replace the Cape Cod curbing with granite curbing, 6-inch vertical granite, and install a gutter mouth curb for the catch basin. So basically, it's an improvement. It will eliminate all the water from coming down to our site.
So you're
That's the
trying to
scope.
enlarge the backyard of one of the units or 2 of the units and control the runoff?
Exactly, and decrease the erosion and flooding on the site.
All right. Staff comment, department comments?
They're all either no objections or not applicable, so there's
Okay.
nothing.
Staff?
Yeah, no, so I think, right, it's pretty straightforward, it's just a, it's an item of stormwater coming down, affecting the hill, the small hill there behind.
Josh, could you make sure that microphone's close to the folks?
Yeah, one
around
other
you?
comment I had was, I just wanted to make sure that the engineering division was okay, because we're touching the Maryville Road and all the other town departments.
Okay, so
seem to
this
be-
has been reviewed by engineering, and they
Yes.
are without objection.
Yes, and in a preliminary plan, earlier in the summer, there was a couple comments, and there was revisions made to the plan, and so we're all set with the changes that were made.
All righty. Ernie, questions?
Just a quick question. What was it, you're changing the slope to 1-to-1, is that what you said?
2 to 1.
2 to
2 to 1.
What was it before?
It's a mix of, it's very irregular out there. Some areas is 2 to 1, some areas is 1 to 1. So it's kind of messy. There's areas that are perhaps some ledgy areas in there too. We're not, if we find ledge, we're not gonna change the ledge. We're just going to try and create this 2 to 1 slope when we can.
Thank you, good.
No questions.
I'm good.
You answered mine. I was gonna ask about the ledge, because so you're not gonna affect any ledge out there.
No.
And that's, how far is that from the Tennessee line is going through this?
Well, there is I'll point out here. This is a 30-foot easement. Here, there's also drainage, 20-foot wide drainage easement, so they're kind of they're next to each other. So we are not doing any work even within the drainage easement.
Who owns the property under the drainage easement?
I think it's the condominium association that we work for.
And you're not doing any work in there?
We are not, we've talked with the engineering department and basically said, don't touch the wall that's there. There's a piece of wall there existing, but we're not getting into that.
If you look at a Google map or something, and now you can see some scouring where water runs along that easement.
Yes.
Are you going to add to, subtract, or it'll be the same?
The scouring is a result of that catch basin and the berming not working properly. So it just comes down. Comes down through here.
So your expectation is the amount of water flowing through that easement will be reduced?
Significantly.
Okay.
So,
Any abutters or anyone in the audience need to speak on this? None? Okay.
yeah, just
Yes.
an additional thing I just thought about. So you're actually is Maryville an accepted street? I assume it is, right?
Yes,
So you're actually approving the accepted street.
that's correct.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. It's already accepted, did not,
They're approving. They're
improving, not approving.
not
Okay, improving,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
yes. Gotcha.
My lips sometimes get
Yep.
twisted.
All right. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
We didn't
All
have
in-
to close
Wait a
it.
minute. Did you guys have something to add?
It's a minor engineering change, it's not a hearing.
Yeah, right, okay.
That's not,
Oh,
that's
it's
my,
I'm just reading.
Yeah,
no,
okay.
no, that's our problem.
All right, we want to skip that
Oh, we can skip
then?
that, yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for approval for a minor engineering change for property located at 10 and 12 Murray Avenue to mitigate runoff from the hill and improve access around the housing unit decks at the rear of number 10 Murray Avenue by replacing 60 feet of bituminous curbing with vertical granite curbing at the end of the cul-de-sac on Maryville Road, and installing 2 modular stone walls along the slope between Maryvale and the housing units as reflected on the site plan entitled 10 to 12 Murray Avenue, Burlington, Massachusetts, prepared by Gala Simon Associates, dated February 12, 2018, and revised to August 15, 2018, subject to the following revisions, terms, and conditions as printed.
Second.
Have you been in contact with Tennessee Gas?
We have not yet.
Okay, that's something you will be doing
I
before you
think,
proceed.
I think the contractor will definitely have to contact them.
Well, it's in that decision.
It is, yeah. Okay, that's a requirement. All righty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 7-0, Noel.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
you.
Good night.
Public hearing, application for approval of modification to a definitive subdivision plan, 0 Mooney Road, Richfield LLC applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
You're not going to have to explain this whole process again, are you? We don't have,
How long do you have?
yeah.
Actually, I know, I hope not to. And in consultation with Mr. Hannafin, as the board knows, we've been kind of trying to work together on this to get everybody on the same page, and I think we have been successful in doing that. And we have a proposed memorandum of agreement that Dan and I have reviewed and we have signed.
Do
So.
you have a copy of that? Not yet?
We have a marked up copy of the initial. I'm going to do a clean one, so
Okay.
I'll get one to staff afterwards. But, so from that perspective, to the degree that that was still an outstanding issue, I don't think it is anymore. Mr. Hannafin's here, obviously, he can speak to it as well. So having put that part of it aside, I think, for the time being anyway, then we're just before the board with our application, which I think we've been through the plan plenty of times. Happy to speak to it and any questions the board might have, but we're hoping to get a vote this evening so that we can move forward with this whole project.
Okay, part of what we're looking for is to get stuff in place so it can be put before the town meeting, I believe, in January, trying to
Correct.
transfer a piece of property to the Hannafin property.
That's correct. And by approving this plan, getting it on record, that will then allow that next step to happen.
Okay, staff.
I'm not gonna start from the beginning. If you have
Thank you.
questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I think half the world has this memorized by now.
So at the last meeting, there was kind of two things that came out of the last meeting. One, that the two private parties had to have a chit chat and try to get that paperwork put together, and I think that's been done. The second item that was discussed with the board and the applicant was the transfer of the property within Mooney Road to the properly show when Mooney Circle was created and all these plans that weren't filed correctly over the years. And the plan that you're looking at here is an old plan, not the new plan, so.
Oh, is it?
Wanted to make sure that that's not the plan that we're
Okay.
approving.
Apologize.
But anyway, to get the shape
Is what we have.
is
a new
what's in
pl-
front of you.
Do you have
to
a copy of
reflect
this?
what's
I've got more copies of plans on this than I know
Yeah.
what to do with. I must have grabbed the
to
wrong one.
reflect the kind of the jog in the street, and then transfer properly the right-of-way that is now a public way with the town to the Hannafin property and the property right next door to it for that little piece of the tail there, which we now can do with a plan in front of us. I did go back and we have drafted a warrant article for January town meeting for that transfer to occur. We have a placeholder filed already. I don't have the warrant article language filed yet, but I'm not too worried about it. But I have gone back and looked at how we've done this in the past. And in every instance, it's been, a plan had been submitted and recorded previously, and then the town has used that plan to then transfer the property. So I think the step, it came up before that, should we wait to do this until after town meeting? If we do this, it's a cleaner transfer at town meeting, and we have that warrant article drafted for town meeting, and the conversations we've had so far with the town, I don't see that there's gonna be too much of an issue.
So then the private parties would do the subsequent filing with the registry deeds after town meeting's action.
Well, they would have to have them associated with their lots, and we would be transferring the properties to those individuals, and there would,
But our filing with the registry of deeds can't transfer the property before town meeting authorizes it.
no, but it outlines that which will be transferred.
So there'll be sufficient documents for reference purposes already filed, is that what you're saying?
Right, we can't transfer property that hasn't already been identified.
Yeah.
It's,
Okay.
I mean, so having it identified on this plan helps the process to transfer it from the town to the property owners.
So no new plans will need to be filed, just change of ownership of a
Correct,
plot? Okay.
correct.
And the applicant will take care of that filing, or who does the filing, us or them, or?
We'll record the subdivision plan, and then when the town deeds it out off of the plan, I assume the property owners of the town will record the deeds. But so in the event that this board approves a subdivision plan, and after the requisite appeal period expires, we'll record the subdivision plan at the registry of deeds, which will then legally recreate the parcels that are in turn going to be conveyed from the town to
Okay.
Mr. Hannafin and the neighbor.
Right, and I mean, that's the difficult part, to then file with the property owners. We can work with council to make sure that happens correctly. That's not a lot of heavy lifting, that piece. And the other piece came out of the last meeting was we did add the condition definitively that a building permit won't be issued until such time as town meeting has approved that conveyance. So,
Say that again?
they can't build on the lot till town meeting acts on the
Until after
conveyance.
town meeting approves. Was there not something in the agreement to further extend the time before a building permit?
That's correct.
But we don't need to worry about it
In the
here?
event that, yes,
Okay,
it's just belts and suspenders, I guess.
Yeah.
all right.
Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any other questions, but there's a long decision in front of you.
Any new comments from departments?
there's nothing new.
Nothing new. Mr. Hannafin, would you care to comment?
Appreciate you hearing from me, thank you. We, like Mr. Murphy said, we've come to I think, a pretty good agreement on all of the things that are leading up to this. So I think we're on the same page, and provided that all the things that Kristen just spoke about occurs on the town side, I think we'll be in good shape to move forward.
Okay, so the agreement accomplishes everything you want and gives you the comfort level you think you need.
Yes, the one question I do have is the process by which the town maps, whether it's the engineering maps or whatever else, reflect the new lot, the way it will actually be after the transfer happens. Both the 0 Mooney Road, 2 Mooney Road, which is my mother's lot, and then also I believe it's, I don't know if that's 2 Oaks, I can't remember the address there, but whatever that lot is, all of those are gonna change. Do the town engineering maps, once that information is transferred to the Registry of Deeds based on what happens in January, when the town transfers the lots, does that all automatically happen, or is that something that has to happen through?
The Registry of Deeds is what proves ownership.
Yeah.
Even if our maps are wrong, the Registry of Deeds proves ownership, but
They will
our,
ultimately be
To the
changed.
question of the assessor's maps being
Assessor's
updated,
maps.
They'll, yearly, the assessor contracts out to update the assessor's maps and the GIS maps associated. We certainly, knowing that this was one of the map issues in the past, that we certainly will pay close attention to make sure that that gets remedied and updated correctly with these filings, and the town meeting conveyance.
so other than the assessors maps, are you referring to other maps other than the assessors maps?
No, the
You
assessor's
said
maps,
engineering.
I think the engineering maps, I don't know how those were, they were,
The assessor's map is the base layer to
Yes.
everything else. So
Okay.
once that gets updated, everything
Perfect.
else on top of it will be reflected correctly.
I think my concerns are alleviated at that point.
Okay, good. Joe?
No, it sounds like everybody's in agreement. I guess, I just want clarification as to who's, I know Tom is gonna be taking care of getting the subdivision maps, planned and all that stuff together, and then getting that recorded, I guess, right?
Correct.
And then the town is gonna, Kristen, who's gonna be facilitating the rest of the pieces of this?
Well, we'll submit the warrant article to town meeting,
Yeah,
or throw the selectmen to put on the warrant for town meeting.
okay.
And once we'll use this plan for the conveyance of lot X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then,
So who's drafting the deeds, who's in other words, there's gotta be deeds drafted and everything else, so, in other words, there's a little more to it. Once the plan is on there, you've identified all the parcels, and then you need,
right, and then the deeds will
quitclaim
need to
deeds
be
that will
updated
then
for those two
transfer
properties.
accordingly, and all that stuff, so how is that, all of that gonna get done?
Are you doing the drafting of the deeds, Tom?
I'm happy to.
You guess so.
I haven't been asked to, but I'm happy to do it. It's no big
Okay.
deal. Yeah. I mean, the grantor is going to be the town, so the town might require their own attorney to do them.
look
but-
at it,
But I'm happy to do
Right.
it. It's,
So that's what I mean, is it the town's attorney, so I guess these are just,
let me put it
details,
this
but I
way.
just-
If the town's attorney doesn't want to do it for whatever reason, I'm happy to do it, put it on the record. It'll take 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, once you get the plan, you just.
Once the plan's on record, the
You're
rest
just
of it.
referencing a number,
Right.
so.
Okay, but you could help draft them and.
I can.
Council, okay,
And then you can submit them to council for
okay.
review.
How's that, Joe?
Yeah, it sounds like it's all
Paul?
tied up.
I still don't see how this is gonna be built, really. I mean, I'm looking at it's 180, 170, 168 down to 156. To me, and the proposed driveway, you're gonna need a four-wheel drive to get up there. I just don't see how it can be, and the ledge runs right through where the back of the house is gonna be. Is there gonna be blasting, or are they just gonna have to listen to one of those things that breaks up the rock,
The
or?
one over here.
No, really?
No, through the chair, if I may, just because it's a legitimate point. At one of the subcommittee meetings, the neighbor who lives up above, that was obviously a concern of his. What the intention of, for my client is, in the event that this is approved and the 30-day appeal, 20-day appeal period expires and it's final, We're going to then go to the Board of Appeals and request a variance to bring the house closer to the street. The
So you're
setback-
gonna have the house at the bottom of the hill.
We're going to get as close to the street as we can, which will minimize, to a great extent, any blasting that has to be in the back, because if you look at the grades, it's a 25-foot setback is what the bylaws require.
I understand that.
If we're able to get that down to 10 feet or something, and we can move the whole house forward, it's going to significantly reduce the amount of blasting into the back of the hill. So that's,
Excuse me, that's not a sure thing. I mean, you go to the
no, it's
Board of
not.
Appeals, they can,
It's
approve or
it's not a sure thing. I would hope that under the circumstances, and
Sure.
Mr. Gaffney knows with the hardships due to topography, this seems to be a classic example. But, you know, we'll give it a shot, and I think we have a good argument.
To the property, and a lot of luck if we approve it.
It's a lot that probably wouldn't be approved under today's standards, but it's 1958 standards or whatever, and
Well,
we're stuck with them.
I have a hard time with grandfathering. I'm afraid that an Indian is gonna come to my house someday and say, this is mine.
Native American, okay. Go ahead, Barbara.
I have no questions.
All right.
I thought you were
I'm
gonna
good,
ask.
thank you.
I'm all set, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All set, thank you.
Public hearing, anyone in the audience want to speak on this matter?
If you don't mind, I'd just like
Sure.
to say, to thank everybody for the time and effort that went into it. I know Christian and Josh put a lot of effort into it, and as well as Tom on his end.
We all learned a lot. We thought we never would learn and hope we don't have to learn again.
I appreciate it, again, it was a lot, and I knew that if my mother had to do it, certainly, or if we had to do it in her stead, it was going to be a difficult thing, and it was going back a long time and a lot of difficulty, so everybody.
It's fortunate you were there to step in for her and act in her interests.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
It's been moved, second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Did you ask the audience?
I did,
Oh, okay, thank you.
and only one member of the audience spoke.
Okay.
Just, was there anyone else? No.
No, you
Okay.
invited him forward, and I didn't know if you asked after that. Fine.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, 7, pardon me?
I'm opposed.
You're opposed to closing the public hearing?
Oh, no. Okay, I thought we were voting on it.
Okay. 7-0-0, closing the public hearing, Noel. Okay, may I have a motion on this, please?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion pursuant to Section 2.5 of the Planning Board Rules and Regulations governing the subdivision of land and pursuant to MGL Chapter 41, Section 81-R. The Planning Board hereby considers the following waivers from the subdivision rules and regulations. Some requested by the applicant and others offered by the Planning Board for this definitive subdivision plan entitled 0 Mooney Road in Burlington, Mass. Submitted by Richfield LLC on July 6, 2016, prepared by Eastern Land Survey Associates dated November 16, 2017, revised to September 5, 2018. The waivers requested below have been reviewed, and the Planning Board finds certain waivers to be appropriate and modifies others for the following reasons.
That was written.
As written. Thank you.
All righty. Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1, abstained. 6-1-0.
6-1, there's still more. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion pursuant to Section 2.4 of the Planning Board Subdivision Rules and Regulations. The Planning Board hereby finds the 0 Mooney Road definitive subdivision plan application submitted by Richfield LLC for a one-lot subdivision to be a complete and proper submission. It's just a second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1 opposed. Abstained? 6-1-0.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the definitive subdivision plan entitled 0 Mooney Road in Burlington, Mass., submitted by Richfield LLC, prepared by Eastern Land Survey Associates, dated November 16, 2017, revised to September 5th, 2018, to be further revised as conditioned herein, reflecting a one-lot subdivision subject to the following terms and conditions as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are you opposing this one, Paul?
Yes. I was just looking at facts.
Okay,
I can't recall having approved
Okay.
facts before.
all right. So abstentions, 601. Do I have that correct? 610. Right.
We commonly do facts when there's other than the standard process, which this is very much
Certainly not standard.
other than the standard.
Yeah, this is far from standard. How well we
I
know.
have to say, no reflection on either party involved here, but I hope we never see anything like that.
Oh. Yes.
Who knows what's hiding out there?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take items 7C through 7K together for discussion purposes.
Second.
Page 15.
Oh, page 15, yes.
Been moved and seconded to take items 7C through 7K together for discussion purposes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 700, Noel.
Is there something-
No, I can do this one.
You can, just in the length of these, what you can do is that the subsequent public hearings for the special permits, and then you can just read the special permit section instead of reading all of them.
Would you do me a favor and read from you what you would like me to read,
And we'll just say so moved.
so I don't mess it up?
Well, I was just gonna say that the motion is to, for a public hearing, public hearings for application for approval of special permits pursuant to section 1215 PD special permit of the Wall Street PD zoning provisions, 15 Wall Street, Wind Street Services applicant, and the other special permits are a special permit pursuant to section 151 motor vehicle repair shops, including without limitation establishment engaged in providing towing service and services of motor vehicles, a special permit pursuant to section 152 places for the sale of motor vehicles limited to trucks only, and to the same of motor vehicle parts and accessories, a special permit pursuant to section 153 new and used truck sales, a special permit to section 154 indoor and outdoor storage, parking of motor vehicles, section 177 maintenance shops, garages, power plants, machine shops, and similar structures to support permitted uses, special permit pursuant to 1715, a machine shop and body shop, and the installation of tires and other motor vehicle parts and accessories if related to the operation of a motor vehicle repair shop. And section 1727, off-street outdoor overnight parking of freight carrying or material handling vehicles and equipment or buses. And finally, a special permit pursuant to section 1728, storage and disposals of oils, fuels, and petroleums products, including storage for on-site heating purposes of the zoning bylaws, 15 Wall Street. Main Street Towing Services applicant for all of those special permits.
Thank you for taking care of that for me. I just asked that anyone who's speaking make sure the microphone is, so the folks at home can understand what's going
Right in
on.
front of you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Christine Hung from Reber and Bronstein, an attorney for the applicant, 15 Wall Street LLC. To my left is Ed Igo of 15 Wall Street LLC, and then to his left is Peter Ogren from Hayes Engineering. We are before you tonight on multiple special permit applications in connection with the renovation of the existing one-story building at 15 Wall Street to an automobile repair shop, which was the site of the former Donahue's retail furniture store. 15 Wall Street is situated within the Wall Street Planned Development District, which last September 2017 was amended to include 15 Wall Street, the property, specifically in Sub-District C. And in March 2018, Mr. Igo purchased that property. He also, as you know, is the current owner and operator of Wind Street Sales, which is, operates on the abutting property at 25 Wall Street, and it has been in successful operation for the last 60 years as a family-owned business. The uses that he's seeking tonight are in use at his property at 25 Wall Street, and he's looking to extend those same uses onto 15 Wall Street. Prior to the zoning amendment, they were all by right uses, except for 2, which were by special permit. So he just wants to extend those same uses to 15 Wall Street. He intends to operate the business at the property, but he is also talking to third parties to potentially lease the site. One of the criterias is that the tenant be, he's looking for the right fit if he's going to lease the property, in that this new operator or tenant would be a seasoned operator for these same activities and uses, and that they operate their operations in the same high standards that he has operated his business. Mr. Igo has a good reputation in the community, and so he doesn't want to ruin that by having a tenant that's substandard. As part of the PDD development responsibilities of the developer, he agrees to enhance the landscape on the front of the property, so he can talk, we'll talk with the planning staff in connection with figuring out like the best type of like shrubs or whatever to make the front look aesthetically pleasing to all. And lastly, we've received comments from all the various departments, and we have no comments with them. Several weeks ago, we went to the DCM meeting, and Conservation was there, and the Board of Health and Building, and they didn't have any issues with this proposed renovation. So this is Mr. Igo, and he's going to walk you through the site plan and then also the renovations that he's planning to do to the existing building. So Ed, do you want to get up and?
Josh, you make sure that the portable mic is working for Mr. Igo.
No, I think you have to click it up.
Jack, does that, maybe we can ask her. I don't know if,
To BCAT cameraman, is that mic wired into you?
It should be, yeah. It's
Yep.
connected to the mixer back there.
thanks.
If not, you can,
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
good, thank you.
Okay, when we purchased this property, I asked John Clancy to take a walk through the building with me. And when he did, he was rather appalled with the lack of code that was met when this building was built out inside to retail furniture. There were no permits pulled and nothing met code. He was cringing. I said, John, don't worry, I'm gonna do the right thing. He says, I know you are. So we have gutted the building in all the non-code, no sprinkler system, there was a fire alarm, but the structure has been modified, so it's completely gutted inside.
So you went to a shell?
It's a shell, that's all it is now.
Okay.
Okay. We, at that point, brought in utilities from the street, because the only utility that actually came into the building was from the Old Mountain Road. It was a 3/4-inch water line that came into here. So there is a water main that we brought in. There is another water main we brought in for a sprinkler system to put in the building, which we're going to do. Despite the lockout of the gas company, we do have a gas main I managed to get in too. We're putting another electric service updated, and that's going to meet, all of that's going to meet code. The MWRA grease trap has been installed for the floor drains to go into so that the water and oil is separated and it doesn't go into the Boston Harbor. There is also a new sewer line coming into the whole length of the building, well, coming into the whole length of the building, okay? Aside from that, that's just some progress we've made in there. Over here, you may have filled your gas bottles for your gas grills at home. We were appalled at the condition of the pump and the tanks that were in there for over 30 years, and they were used when they were put in there. We approached the fire department and we asked them, what is your take? Is there permitting? Is there this? It also heated the building, which was scary.
Scary.
Right. So when we talked to the fire department, we have a great relationship with the fire department. As you may all remember last year, I told you about that. They said, oh, we can't do anything about it. It's pre any sort of regulations or anything like that. We would just love to see it gone. And our answer was, so would we. It's gone. This posed a huge danger. There was gas leaks here, and propane will crawl along the ground. It would have walked its way up to Wayside, partially up there. It could have walked its way over to the end of Mountain Road, and another very important person in the room's home over on the other street there, Oxbow. It could also go down
Further
into...
away than the butter standards.
Yes, and it would work its way down into Crossroads, downhill there. The explosion would have been scary. We're very happy, and then that was removed by a licensed operator, and it was disposed of properly. Okay. From there, we also had these containers that were stacked up here. All of the containers were stacked on top of one another, not on level ground, okay, not tied together. It was relatively scary. They're all gone, and they ain't coming back, okay? Like Christine mentioned, we are going to enhance the landscape out here on Wall Street. We're also going to come to this end here. We've got plans to add some here. Some of the trees have been removed here for bringing the utility lines in. They were overgrown abradates that were not in good health and not trimmed like they should have been. But that will all be replanted and added to. Other than that, that's kind of all I have to say about the site. I'm going to talk a little bit about the building now and our plans for that. Okay. Here is the front of the building, not towards Wall Street. Wall Street is here. Okay. Over this way, you drive in. It could be the same driveway, the entrance that's there existing. Okay.
When you say front, the front is facing the parking lot.
It's sideways, right. The building is sideways. Frontage is on Wall Street. Okay. Now the solarium that is there, that is being taken out, and that's going to be rebuilt and framed out on the same footprint, and it's going to be nice with windows, nice windows, and all the windows are going to be replaced in the building. There is going to be an overhead door added here for access into this section, and then this overhead door exists, and so does this one. On the far end here, there is an overhead door here now. Oh, well, it's removed. It's open for an overhead door. It was an old overhead door that was out of non-repairable. There's going to be a new overhead door cut here, okay, and that's going to open up that section there, right here. Okay, this is the part that faces the old Mountain Road. Okay, and you know, that's pretty much it. There's going to be all open space here for service work and so forth. There'll be offices here, men's and ladies' rooms here, part storage here. Any questions? I'd be more than glad to answer them.
I guess first question, any of the uses that you're going to put in the new building, and I think Christine covered that, are all uses which you were previously doing for umpteen years in your adjacent?
We do currently.
So there's no new uses to the area, just expanding the existing uses into the new building?
Exactly.
Okay.
Nothing we don't do already.
Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The project's still under review by many of the departments, so we don't recommend a decision this evening yet. Overall, I mean, they're keeping the building where it is. As mentioned, all the uses are already being used, are already in operation next door. One of the things that we did note in the discussion with the PD, the PD approval was the increased landscaping, especially in front of the building, not in front of the building as it fronts the parking lot, but the front that
If you
faces.
turn the board over, Ed, I think she's referring to the other side.
The front that faces Wall Street. So really, our initial comments here are just that the automotive use was favorable so long as we could screen it a little bit. And the 4-car storage area that's shown
Referring to
right
that area?
in the front right there, we would ask that that be looked at a little bit more to beef up some of the landscaping in that area, because the property line jogs in right there, so you really can't get at the corner as, between Wall Street and Littlesbrook Drive that's right there. So we just want to make sure that's beefed up a little bit. And then I had a question actually for the applicant on what is happening on the Littlesbrook Court side of the building. Are you refacing the building at that point? Are you repainting the building?
That currently facing that way is getting repainted as soon as it stops raining.
Okay.
Okay, I've contracted with somebody to come in, paint it with an epoxy paint to seal it. It has been repaired because it was in disrepair,
Right.
as you probably have seen driving it. What we're going to do with the entire building, okay, is ephes all of this. It's going to be, ephes is it is the exact same surface that they just put on the Target store down in Crossroads. It's like a stucco or a wallboard. It's not, it's going to look good. It's going to have a flare out here, okay, to give it some character, and it's going to look a lot better than what it does now.
All right. Other than that, I don't have a lot of comments right now. I would like to see the utilities that you just talked about on the plan, before we're said and done with everything, just so we know where the new ones ended up. And that's it. I'll have.
Okay, so we're still waiting for comments, so should we waive reading of the comments until we get the complete?
Yeah, you can read whatever's come in so far and just read new ones. It's up to you.
Board of Selectmen are favorable with conditions. The condition is, please be advised that this establishment currently has a Class 1 license issued by the Board of Selectmen. If any changes are expected, they are instructed to contact us to update the license. Inspector of Buildings is favorable. DPW is favorable with conditions. The one that's the mostly standard, the one that stands out is all materials within the public right-of-way will comply with town standards that's set forth in the Town of Burlington Department of Public Works, street opening, utility conditions, and connections, rules, and regulations.
Do you still need to do work in Wall Street?
We have one more connection to make at the very edge of Wall Street. Everything else has been already connected in and then repaved
Okay.
at this point.
Fire Department approval with the following modifications. I think they're all standard. Sprinkler system to be reviewed, fire alarm system to be reviewed, hydrant location to be reviewed. Flammable combustible storage permit required per 527 CMR 1.00. Fire protection systems to be monitored per 9th edition IBC. Dumpster permit required, and the Knox box required. And then Board of Health, I believe, is all standard, Josh? Oh, it
There might
says,
be- there might be a
it says
couple-
something revised as of today.
Yeah.
Let's see.
They just changed, I think she just wanted to change a couple of words on one of the conditions, but
Oh, okay.
they're standard for this particular use. You know,
Okay.
not like standard.
And Concom has no objections.
Do you know what boards you're going before yet again?
I don't think we were planning on going before any board. but
So
we
you're
can.
you're all set, you've made the circuit, you're done, you think?
I think so.
Okay. One thing you brought up, Christine, and maybe Ed, you could answer this. If you do lease space to third parties, would any of them be ones that require separate licenses from the state, or would they be operating under your license?
I think what we, sorry, can I answer that? So I think what, if he does pursue going down the lease route, that entity would be back before the board to have whatever permits, requisite permits transferred over to them.
Okay, so the permits
As
would be
the
in the other
operator.
person's name, not in
Yes,
Ed's name?
that's
Okay.
correct.
We would present the credentials, that individual, to you people to convince you people.
I'm
that
sorry,
we-
say again?
We would present the credentials of that person to you people to
Okay.
approve that, okay?
So
That-
it would just be a new operator at the site, and then Ed would be the landowner.
Yes, okay, yeah, no, I think you've addressed my question as to how that was gonna happen. Joe?
No, I want to go back, and I want to go down and look around.
Well, it sounds like my husband dodged a bullet every time he filled up our gas tanks there, so I don't mind so much that I have to go to O'Connor's now. That sounds a little scary. I have one question only. Is there room along the back side of that building to put some plantings along that other street? No, I mean,
The other side.
this one, I forget the name of
Down
that
there?
street.
Littlesbrook, you talking?
Littlesbrook, is there any room along the back of that building to do
There,
some plantings?
there is room to put plantings here. There are a lot of dead trees there. I removed a couple of them here, but unfortunately, the trees in this area are not on my property. Even though they were dead, I would have done it for the property owner while I had the crane there, okay? But we're unable to.
I wouldn't ask you to do things on someone else's property, but on your property, would it be possible to have some plantings come around the corner and along the
Yes.
backside, just
Yes,
for?
there'll be some trees that will have to come down in that corner area. There is a marquee here. They planted a couple of very nice blue spruce here that are healthy, okay? And I'm more than glad to thin that in that area and add some other blue spruce or something of
That
that
would be
nature.
nice.
Yeah,
So we
I have
could
no
put that
problem
in
with
the
that. That's planned
Okay.
to do that there and then down here as well, because there's an office building here, and we want to make some sort of presentation there, because there's a beautiful wall that comes right around here with plantings on it as well.
Okay, great, thank you. I have no other
Thank you.
questions.
Carol?
No, I don't think I have any questions.
They're gonna be back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ego, a couple of questions. Here it says you're planning to sell some trucks. How many trucks would that be limited to for sale on the property one time?
Well, it depends on the economy. Right now, it's good.
Storage of
No, it
vehicles,
says,
inventory?
it says sale. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, sale, yeah, trucks. So
You're talking
the-
inventory.
So
Yeah.
typically.
He's gonna sell as many as he can. The question is,
I understand it, but typical garages, there's a limited amount of 5 or 7 is the number, from what I
Yeah.
understand. So just wondering here, what's the number that, is there a bylaw that limits the number of trucks for sale on property, or?
There's a selectman license as referenced in
Okay.
the comments, but we
Is there a
certainly
number?
ask about it. I don't know what the number is.
And my other question had to do with item J, and it talks about street outdoor overnight parking for freight carriers. So can you tell me about what, yeah, it says, well, it says, I'm just reading what it says, yeah.
Yeah, it says off-street, but still.
Off-street, so that means into the parking lot over there where the, and how many plan to be parked there at any one time?
Probably 30 to 50 vehicles, depending on the size of the vehicles.
30 to 50?
30 to 50 small vehicles, 50, 30 of others, smaller.
Be small trucks, right?
Yes.
Or cars, or what's the?
Could be automobiles, but mostly medium-duty trucks, we call them.
So the automobiles are there for the garage, for the repair, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ernie?
Just quickly, just based on, so the spaces that are the tandem spaces at the top of the plan, those are, you're thinking those are gonna be used for sales of medium-duty truck?
Sales of trucks or vehicles to be worked on. Clearly, if a vehicle is there waiting for parts or something, it's okay to park in front of it. Over here would be, the handicap, and then other people coming, customers coming and going.
Before the next meeting, can you break that down a little bit in terms of the use of just so we can determine based on, how many, the employees that are gonna be there and working there, and then the kind of repair, how many cars and parking spaces are needed for repair, and then what's left over for permanent spaces to be used for sale, just to understand a little bit more before the next meeting. Thanks.
Okay.
I know that we went over quite a few items when we did the rezoning to the PD, not in particular, but in general. So I would like to get into the specifics a little more before I ask questions. Not at this time, in other words.
Okay. The question came up, overnight storage carriers. That was meant for freight handling, I thought. You're not in that business.
Material handling vehicles could be.
Well, freight handling is a very broad.
Okay, well, as I recall that bylaw, we were at risk of freight transfer stations using the public streets for excess vehicles, and I don't think that's the business you're in.
No.
Public freight carries, ICC commercial carriers.
We are a commercial carrier as well, yes. We do transport front-end loaders, fork trucks, scissor lifts, and so forth on our flatbed trailers, which would be stored in our yard if you pick it up at 3 in the afternoon, because it's being on a site in Chicopee, Massachusetts, let's say at 6 a.m. So somebody would leave out earlier. So that's material handling equipment, which we do a lot of.
Okay, so I'm confused why that got into the conversation if it's all on private property, because I thought it had to do with parking of those commercial things on public streets.
No, this is off-street, the regulation.
Oh, it's off-street.
That's off-street.
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 Okay.
Excuse me.
So it's a different law than I'm thinking.
Yeah, you
All
need
right.
you still need a permit to
Yeah.
park off-street.
Okay. Barbara had another question.
Not a question. I just wanted to call to your attention item 11 here about temporary signs. Although your business has never been guilty of doing this, the previous business not only had temporary signs at their site, but they used to put temporary signs out on Cambridge Street. Can't do
In
that.
the middle of Cambridge.
I have no
Cambridge
intention of doing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And no feather signs.
No
All right.
LED signs.
These are public hearings. Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we will be holding this open, so for the people at home who will be seeing this tomorrow night, they will still have an opportunity to, as members of the public, come at our next meeting.
You ready for a motion?
Got this the engineer here. Is there something that we need from him? I hate to have him make a trip and do nothing.
I think if anybody has any particular questions about anything they see, feel free to ask Peter.
We just wanted to hear if there were any technical questions that he could answer that I couldn't, so.
Okay.
I would like a conversation, and it could be offline, just about kind of what's happening on the existing site in regards to drainage. It's an old site. I'm sure it doesn't meet modern stormwater standards, and I'm not necessarily looking for it to, but I just want to understand if there's any issues that we should be taking a look at.
Okay.
I can make an appointment to see the town engineer and find out how the drainage works there. The site is all paved now, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah. Okay. We can have a conversation between now and next meeting.
Are you looking for, storm scepters and things, because given the nature of the work that might be going on there?
I'm
trying
looking to
keep
understand what happens now before
Okay,
really figure out what we need to think
okay,
about.
I
just
think
wanna
that's a
understand.
good area to explore.
Public hearing.
You already asked.
I already asked.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Oh, you should have woke me up before.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue these matters to the planning board meeting of November 1st, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 700 Newell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take items 7L and 7M together for discussion purposes.
Second.
Page 16.
This is the one that you.
Who's TMC New England? Okay. All righty. I'm going to ask the vice chair to take over this because I am in a abutter to 34 Cambridge Street.
Okay. Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to take items 7L and 7M together for discussion purposes.
Second.
Can you give that? Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry,
600, Noel. This is a public hearing application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.3.2.22 drive through of zoning bylaws, 34 Cambridge Street, Crossroads Shopping Center, TMC New England LLC applicant, and discussion of an application for approval of minor engineering change, 34 Cambridge Street, Crossroads Shopping Center, TMC New England LLC applicant.
Madam Chair, if I would I'd just like to mention that I was not present at the last meeting. I have watched the tape and signed the appropriate Mullen forms, so I can participate in this discussion.
Great, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn with Reamer and Bronstein representing the applicant, TM Crowley, in connection with the application tonight. With me are Adam
Juzak.
BK
Architects.
BK Architects.
Pull that mic nice and close, please.
Sure. Adam Juzak, BK Architects.
Thank you.
And Brian Dundon, who is the civil engineer of record with RJO O'Connell, that was with me at the last meeting as well. So pleased to be back before you tonight in connection with this application. Again, just to remind you as to what we're talking about here, it's CVS relocating within the Burlington Crossroads. They're presently in an inline location that's immediately adjacent to Total Wine. And they have an opportunity to reoccupy the former Booza space on the other side of the plaza. I know they're very excited about the opportunity to have a little bit more space at this location, and also it provides for an opportunity to have a drive-through element at the rear of the building, which they don't presently have, obviously, which they feel is certainly a convenience to their customers. And I think we all have had occasion where kids strapped in a car seat, or elderly drivers as well, that don't really want to get out of the car. So it does provide a convenience for a lot of folks to be able to have that there. So when we met with you before, a couple of weeks ago, I know there were a few comments that came up that we were still within the Conservation Commission process. We still technically are, although I believe they've submitted a communication that they're all set with everything at this point. They technically just kept the hearing open, so that we could finalize the process with the planning board as well. But I think there was a lot of commentary just about the layout of the parking and the access behind and whatnot, and the requests have been made, and Brian did so by going out there and doing the pavement markings to show where the drive-through would be, where the stop line would be, where that throughway in the rear would be as well, just to confirm that everything would work and that there's sufficient area for vehicle maneuvering and the like. So that has been done. I'm not sure how many of the board members have had an opportunity to go out and look at it. I know staff has, and obviously we've had a discussion with Kristen about it as well. So Brian, I don't know if you want to mention anything as part of that
I guess what I could just add to it, just follow up on staff's comments. As Attorney Vaughn indicated, I did paint the various amenities, the pharmacy window, the trash enclosure area, one-way loading zone, and the double lane striping on the service road between the rear of CVS and Michael's. Staff had a chance to review it, although I won't speak for Kristen. There was some concerns as you were exiting the pharmacy window. There was a for lack of a better term, a blind spot as you're looking left down the road.
Yep.
She asked that we reevaluate the design in that corner, and I have, and I will present that plan tonight for review and comment.
Please do.
Again, so to address the concern as the vehicles were exiting the pharmacy window, being so close to the building corner, there was concern about a blind spot, about a sight line as you would be looking left for oncoming traffic that would be coming and utilizing the parking on the south side of the Michaels. So for orientations, this is the Michaels building, Cambridge Street is over here, and this is the Booster Wine Liquors. So to improve upon that, what we have done is we have extended our understanding that there will be no right turn moves allowed to go down by the side of CVS. In order to accentuate that, we are proposing to install a new curb line that essentially, as you come along the service drive, you will be forced to take a left turn move to utilize the parking on the south side of Michaels. By making this maneuver, we're able to extend the drive lane such that the entire length of the vehicle is now past the building. So you have a clean line of sight line as you look left to observe and notice vehicles coming towards you. This is now operated under a stop bar and sign controls. We have stop signs on both sides of the island. In addition, as you are traveling south along this road, we will have no right turn signage installed here, so it again accentuates the fact that it's left turn only movements can be made. In addition, we just took the opportunity to kind of define the drive aisle here with a little striped island and accentuate with stop sign and a stop bar as well. Forcing the fact that this is right turn only, stop, right turn only, that signage will be installed here. Two-way traffic aisle, traffic markings, and a left turn lane and wording only will be installed on the pavement as well. And then understanding that there is a pedestrian cross connection between Michaels and CVS. It's in the stamped pavement pattern. There is out there now a sidewalk connection that's kind of defined by an ADA accessible ramp with tactile domes. On either side, we're planning to install pedestrian crossing signage. So as you are, again, coming either in north or south direction, you have a visual identification saying this is a pedestrian pathway as well. So we believe that with these improvements, these proposed improvements, I think we've addressed, or an attempt to address staff's comments and concerns regarding the blind spot that was created under the original design.
Question, there was a light pole right at the end. Is that gonna be put somewhere else, or?
Yes, you're correct. There is an existing light pole that's in this general area. It's now being relocated to this location over here. There is also an existing, just to kind of close that light pole discussion out, there is an existing light pole that is at the other opposite end where the receiving door is. That light pole is staying, and we're just protecting it with a curved island. So it'll be encompassed in a landscaped curved island.
Staff, please.
So I appreciate the conversation, and I also appreciate the change, and it's funny, I drew the exact same thing. To kind of curve it, have people curve in, because it was just, I mean, you got your hood out, and then not that many people are going kind of straight, them are mostly turning there, but it's just kind of this kind of no man's land that kind of exists back there. And I think it's critical to define the path for both people going left to park at Michael's, as well as have the expectation that there's going to be someone that's coming out from the drive-through at that location. And also gives us a little bit more green space, which is great. I think they needed a 2-lane marking, which they've done. So I'm pleased with the new configuration at that location. I still think and want to know a little bit more about, as you come around the building from the entrance on the right side and come around, There's a utility pole, I think there's a transformer. They're striping it as loading area, but it just kind of feels like it's just kind of just sitting there in the pavement, so I just want to make sure that there's some protections around that area, and also along the back of the building, what are they doing to kind of enhance the experience a little as you drive?
Yeah, it's kind
to
of
the,
not
drive
so appealing.
to the drive-through area, and I mean, I think they have signage on the ground that there's to go to the drive-through. I'm not sure. Is there anything else other than the ground signage that kind of bring you to the drive-through?
There is, as far as monument signage, a little directional wayfinding signage, there was none planned at this stature. It's essentially going to be done with painting on the pavement.
And that's fine. However, because it looks so kind of back in the building, it seems like, okay, I'm back here now. Where am I? But if you kind of spruce it up a little bit and guide people there, I don't think you need a whole bunch of signage by any means. And I'd prefer less signage, but you don't want to have people kind of in the loading areas.
Bunch of signs, but I would think that there would need to be one sign that's not painted saying drive-through.
Yeah.
In case it's snow covered.
I would think so
Yeah.
too, that you
Yeah.
have something when you were coming down, that you would see you go around the back, because normally,
Especially once it snows, so that
Right.
people know where to go.
I think what we can do is, in the past, CVS has done the wayfinding signage, but to your point, in the wintertime, when the areas get plowed, they get buried and bent, and they don't get repaired. However, it does lead an opportunity that we could probably think of a small little wayfinding sign in this location to accentuate, the drive-through to the left,
I mean, out by the parking lot where
No,
people
it's-
are first turning right.
right there,
if
sure.
you're coming in from
No.
Cambridge Street,
Yeah,
and you're coming down towards CVS,
right,
if there's a sign with an arrow that says drive-through,
yes, right there,
Yeah.
like
There.
around there,
Yeah.
yes.
Sure.
Just
And
so
a
people
smaller
know where
line,
to go.
yep.
yeah.
A few strategically. I don't want
I mean, I don't,
17 signs.
no, I'm talking about one or two. I don't think you need a
Yeah.
lot, but you need something that's not painted on the ground, that
Sure.
stands up, telling people where to go.
We can add that, that's not a problem.
Just last on my comment, so those parking spaces that are right into the drive-through, I would just prefer that they be employee, they'll probably be employee spaces anyway, but, and to that employee parking situation, I drove through the site just to look through this, looked through the striping pattern here. I didn't notice a lot of people in the perimeter of the site and in the designated employee spaces, and I know Target's not open yet, and
And
there's
actually,
other things that are not
Target
open.
is open. It's not
Um,
officially, but
But
Speak
I
about
just,
that.
we
Well, I'm
have,
glad you missed it too.
we have the condition in this permit for CVS to make sure their employees are adhering to the employee parking regulations of the center, but I want to reiterate to the property owner for everyone else that this center doesn't work
Because you
if
should
you
know
don't
that
have the open spaces.
at the opening last night, the Target opening, no employees were parked in the back. They were all parked in the front.
So
Yeah.
we could, if I could on that point, I've had an opportunity to talk to Edens about that. I know Kristen was kind enough to make me aware of it. So they do encourage the employees to park on the outside perimeter of the lot as well as behind the building, where there's that parking as well. I think what happened is that with Target, they just opened up, was it a soft opening last night?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
A
and
lovely
this,
store,
they've
Yeah.
got this,
very nice.
they are still open now, so.
Okay, but I think when
We demand.
Kristen looked at it, prior to today, with Target being vacant and with Booster being vacant, the beer workspace. So I think that there probably has been an oversupply of parking out there, which has caused the employees to say, well, don't need to park so far away, right? But Edens is aware, it's something that they talk to their employees about, to park on the outside perimeter.
Yeah, I mean, even way up front, that, toward the front of the site is even further away, but I mean, that Panera corner
Yeah.
is, I mean, that just needs to be, that area needs to be off limits, and the management really needs to make sure that as all of these stores open, that we're managing employee parking.
Yeah. It should be, isn't it written into the lease, shouldn't it be written into the lease, Mark?
I don't honestly know if it's written into the lease, Ernie. I mean, a lot of these leases are,
You said encourage. I think we should.
Yes,
We
require.
want to do more than encourage.
You want to require.
Require.
You're right, Bernie, thank
So
you.
you might ask them if at least in the future, when they do up their leases, they can put some provisions of our permits into their lease. Thank you.
And the last thing I wanted to just reiterate what Ernie had mentioned at the last meeting, that the planning board's position is that we prefer vertical granite curbing along that whole edge unless for some reason Concom desires something else.
Turtle curbing.
I don't know whether.
Yeah.
That is all I have.
May I, around the back where you show the diagonal parking, I was surprised at how, that's like 50 feet from the building to the curb. So is that going to be for employee parking or something back there?
I hope so.
Okay, so there won't be a lot of coming and going, really, if the employee's just going to park and go to work. Well,
yeah, we can, we're committed to that being employee parking in the back, so there's very low turnover. To the extent it needs to be signed or demarcated as such, that's not a problem, so.
Ernie, any questions?
None I can think of right now. I think I said. Thank you.
Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question on the new curbing you're talking about, to prohibit cars to go only to the left and behind the building. So is that going to be granite curbing so they can't go around the right of the building? Or how's that going to be set up?
The new curbing that is being planned to accentuate this left turn movement will be vertical granite curb.
Can you pencil in again for me where it's going to be, where that curbing's going to go?
Okay. Out there today, there is an existing sidewalk around there. So what we're going to do is pretty much opposite the existing landscape dial and the opposite of Michael's. We'll begin new vertical granite curb installation, and it'll run in a counterclockwise direction, and then it'll raise and tie into the building corner. So the area, as Kristen alluded to, this will be all now landscaping.
Can you bring that a little closer? I just can't see what you penciled in. Can you bring that, can you swing that? Just bring it in. Yeah. Well,
Bring it up.
See what you're up to.
Okay.
Okay, so a little bump up. Okay, thank you.
It's just a force.
That's all it is, okay. Okay. Yeah, so I did cruise by there and drove around, I walked the site. It was last Thursday, it was dark, it was rainy, beautiful night to do that. And even with the bump out, and I walked the plaza because I'm concerned about two things. I'm concerned about vehicular safety and pedestrian safety. Probably more pedestrian safety as I came around. And the more I looked at the site and what you're planning to do, even with the bump out there, because that's not prohibiting. If you had on a high, you do it, but to prohibit cars from going around. But you can't do that because you need cars to come out. So when I drove around the building in the back, I kind of just was trying to do what everyone I'm sure did, was came around the left, and then when I came around to go into the right-hand lane, I kind of brought myself back to driving in Ireland this past summer. On the left-hand side, now I'm on the right-hand side. So, and I've done that many times. But for folks that aren't familiar with doing a left to a right, it's kind of confusing over there. And I'm going to talk about that being a very hot pedestrian corner. So you've got Target right there, you've got Michael's right there, and last time I recommended that you flip that. You flip it where you put the drive-in over to the other side, and you put the entrance back over to where Michael's and Target's is going to be. So you have a nice pedestrian corner versus having to make people going all the way across and having traffic come right down with that heavy pedestrian side of it's going to be. Yeah, I'm not convinced that having that there, particularly with cars coming out, people coming across, I'm really concerned about pedestrian and vehicle safety there. And the more I walk the site, the more I was convinced that the right place for it to be is onto the right-hand side. And Joe, recall we did that with Brookline Bank right there downtown, where they had to have the drive-in where they said to have it. We had people crossing across that, and I know you spent a lot of time on that one. and ultimately got that out into the back where there was no issues with people crossing where that drive-through's coming through. So I think something here, we'd probably be able to do the same thing, keep the drive-through on the right-hand side, make it a nice pedestrian-friendly area, put the entrance over to the left, right over near Michael's and Target. And I'm gonna say, you know, you're gonna have a lot of our seniors doing that triple walk right there, right around the corner as they head over to Panera for a cup of coffee and some Danish. So I'm not convinced that that's gonna work at all for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
If I could on that, and respectfully, Bill, appreciate your opinion. I think our concern is that I don't think we can move the entrance first off, but even if we could to that corner, I think it would just promote more activity in a busier scenario with folks that are, I think if you're talking about having the entrance at this corner here,
Yes.
then, you know, that would create a lot more pedestrian activity and crossing at this area where you do have that kind of traffic
Why
with
is that?
people coming.
There's not a lot of traffic open that happens. I've been in that plaza hundreds and hundreds of times, probably as you have as well.
Bill?
I'm not concerned
How
about that.
about instead of putting, it doesn't make any difference where you put the drive-through window. For the, see, the one on Cambridge Street, it's way around the back. So, you know, it works and that's where the pharmacy is. Instead, have the drive-through on the side, so they will come down, take a right, stop at the drive-through, stay to the right and come around
In
and
that
come.
way,
Uh-huh.
so you're saying come in that way
You've
for the
lost me, guys.
drive-through.
Come in which way?
I'm saying go straight down the front of the building, past the entrance, and take a right,
Yep.
That's what.
and have
that's
the
what-
drive-through window there somewhere. You could even have it at the back corner,
But
wherever
then
you
you're-
wanted
but
to.
then you're on
And
the
you'd
left.
stay to the right
You're
and
right,
go
you're saying
around.
Right,
Yeah.
all the way
No,
around.
Yeah.
But then the
operationally,
driver is on the wrong side
Yeah,
next to the
correct.
building.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the middle.
Yeah.
That's
What?
The driver
Yeah,
is
the
on the
driver.
left.
Oh, yeah, you're
They
right.
can't get
Yeah.
to the window.
Yeah, I think if you look at what the layout's gonna be with the pharmacy over to the left-hand side, and you're putting the entrance onto the right-hand side, I think, the way I think is, you can just flip that, you know, you just put the entrance on the right, you put the pharmacy on, put the entrance on the left, put the pharmacy on the right. I'm not sure what's holding that, you know, from an engineering standpoint, it's gonna be the same thing.
No.
No,
No.
because the vehicle, the operator's on the left-hand side, it has to be a
No, I'm
counterclockwise.
talking now, you're putting the drive-through over to the right. We figure out the drive-through all the way over to the right, in just that right-hand section.
In here?
Yep, that's gonna be the drive-in section right over there, dedicated, yep.
But the
So you're gonna come in on the right-hand side, you're gonna circle around, yep, you don't, stay on the right, just drive up, yep, circle around, twist around, come right back down, nope, come back down and come hit the window right there.
Oh, okay. So
Right
you're
here?
making
Yep.
a U-turn.
You're making a U-turn right there, like we did at Brookline Bank,
There's the U-turn.
yeah.
So he's saying you come in, you take a right, you go to the back of
You-
the site,
you
and then
wanna-
make a U-turn.
Come out, yeah.
Turn around and come out,
Either
and the
way,
window's
you
there
know,
on the left of
So
the,
you
on the right
come
side
in,
of
you
the
come in with
building.
the, let's see, the drive side's gonna be on the left, so
It's
you,
gonna be in the
so
road.
come in here and
It's
do a
gonna be in the
little
road.
U-turn and come right back. Well, so then come on the left-hand side, have your driver's side, come in the left-hand side, have the window right there, and then do U-turn out or
That's,
come
you
back.
could do that, yeah.
But the issue from an internal standpoint, one of the things that we're fixed is, this is the receiving area that exists today, so we're
Loading
reusing
zone.
it. So there's not enough room internally to
Put the pharmacy.
accommodate the receiving area and the internal layout of the pharmacy layout and its seating area, waiting area, and
Because of where the existing dock is.
that is the way the geometry of the building works. So when you take into the three major components, which is receiving, entrance, and the pharmacy window and the layout of the layout, the only way it really makes sense and it operates functionally and whatnot is this is a fixed thing right now today that can't move. That's where the trucks are. The delivery trucks will come in. They're offload, allows the access road to be maintained by the rest of the mall center, which is a key component that Edens has put CVS under as far as criteria, is that they cannot restrict the access to have constant delivery truck service in the rest of the mall. In order to accommodate the pharmacy window and have an adequate queue length that is kind of independent from the overall mall itself, it lends itself to this location. And now I agree with you and understood and appreciate Kristen's comments about as you exit under the original design, there was a blind spot. I believe that we've kind of corrected that. So now that leaves just the entrance. And the entrance that we propose is in this corner. for two reasons. One is, again, understanding from the overall shopping center perspective. Michael's isn't here, Target's is in this location. Their entrances are very close, so you already have customers from Michael's and from Target competing for the parking that's already here. Everyone likes to park right at the front door. In this fashion, by relocating or proposing the entrance for CVS here, we kind of get a better even disbursement of parking throughout the parking lot, the parking field. We get to draw people away, park in the underutilized piece of the parking lot, which is down in this end. But yet, the way the geometry of the shopping center works, if there was a customer at CVS and they wanted to go and shop at either Michael's or Target, the length of travel is so short, we have excellent pedestrian pathways to connect everything up, that they're not going to go back into their vehicles over here and try to find a space. They'll visually see that the area is essentially full or heavily utilized, and they'll tend to walk. So we think that, based on all the various components, the geometry of the building and where it's situated, that the most practical sense is the sense that we are proposing to move forward with for the shopping center tonight.
Just a question on drive-through. So, is that a requirement for you to move over to that building? Is that why you moved over versus staying in the existing site?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Chairman. Ms. Chairman. Madam Chairman.
Barbara?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Paul?
My idea was great, except it's on the wrong side of the car. No, I have,
Okay.
It would work really well in Ireland, where, like, according.
Joe?
All I did was great, except it was not, so. I'm good right now.
I like the addition to the driveway. At the back of the building, are you gonna make the back of the building better looking? Are you gonna face it the same way as the front? The back of that building is pretty darn ugly.
Just so we're clear, when you refer to the back of the building, you're talking about this one here.
Yes, the building itself, you drive back there and it's very unattractive. Are you gonna make that the same side, whatever you do with the front?
I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce my colleague, Adam Juzak, who is the architect for the building, and he'll be able to address any architecture-related treatments that are planned for this location.
Great, thank you.
Good evening. So at the current time, we are proposing to refurbish the back of the building. I know right now it's in rough shape. You can see that it's several years old. So what we were going to do is go in and fix any damaged items on the back wall and then repaint it. That was our approach at this time.
It's just, so it's still gonna be full cement?
Yeah, we chose to leave it as the cement block. That's a durable material that we feel is appropriate for that area.
the only one that's gonna be there, Carol, is the people that are going for the drive-through, really, right?
Yeah, but it's
It-
god-awful
it is,
ugly.
but-
It's god-awful. It's not even,
I think what you want to do, if there's people out of town, what they're going to do is drive through the back of the building and say, this is Burlington, right? It's not.
Yeah.
But if you go through the one in the center of town, which is done nicely, right?
it's
got some nice
very nice.
right,
architectural
it's
elements.
it looks like a nice building all around,
Yes.
so.
Faux windows maybe or something like that is what you're thinking of?
Yeah,
maybe?
even if there was some faux windows or
Some architectural
something just to
elements.
make it look a little bit,
Molding maybe back there. or
Yeah.
yeah.
Something to break up that wall.
Well, to make it look like
It's a
there's
building.
customers coming there.
Yeah.
And so you want it to look inviting for the customers.
So do you guys want, are you guys asking for a different material that's not concrete block, or just different elements on top of the concrete block?
Less like the back of a building.
Yeah, so that it looks more like a building that you would want, that you look like you're going to somewhere. It doesn't have to be, it can be faux, but
Right.
faux windows or something, just to make it look a little bit more inviting, so that you don't look like you're going to the loading dock.
Are you putting wall pack lighting?
We are in the back of the building.
Is it similar in design to the lighting that's in the front? Or can it be kind of integrated in, kind of in
They are
harmony
like
with
a,
the.
they are like more of an architectural wall pack. They're a nice looking wall pack. They don't look that industrial.
You don't need anything functional back there, just something aesthetic to, dress it up a little bit.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, it is.
And there's all
it is
kinds of stuff like
A long
that.
wall. It's very short, so.
Right, it just
Sort of
looks,
difficult to break up the height of the wall.
it's just god awful. There's no other word. It's god awful ugly.
I
I'm
agree.
sorry, but,
It is pretty beat up, right?
you know, and, with the dumpsters, those won't be emptied super early in the morning,
It can't be.
will they? Like before
7?
7?
That is correct. No, they are scheduled, those hours are typically flexible. CVS tends to like to do them during non-peak shopping hours, so you'll probably see it, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning or later in the afternoon, after 5, whatnot.
It's
But
just
they-
because the people that live up,
Right.
Well, Jack lives over behind us, so
No,
maybe we wanna get at 5 in the
No,
morning.
but that side wouldn't be where Jack is, this is on the other
Yeah,
side.
but it's still close enough that,
I think actually there's a general bylaw that
Right.
prohibits you from doing it
7
earlier. I know that everyone
Yeah,
doesn't follow it, but,
I was just gonna say, just because there's the bylaw doesn't mean
I
that,
understand, but I
So.
think,
How about giving it to the high school art course? No,
The
really?
back of the building?
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, tell them,
paint a mural on the back.
murals or whatever,
You're an
yeah.
architect. I'm quite certain that you can come up with something that will look more attractive than what's there probably very easily. How do we want to approach that, though? Do we want to, are we looking for a vote tonight? We
I
were,
mean, I
right?
think the
So
applicant would
maybe-
like a vote tonight.
Yes, but can we somehow
Sure.
put something in here so that the applicant will work with staff and with the vice chair to come up with a more attractive presentation in the back so that we can still move forward tonight?
How about wording it something that looks nice?
Well, if they work with the architect, staff, and vice chair, I would feel very comfortable with that. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Yes, we can write a condition that somehow kind of brings, well, number one goal, kind of making it look less like the back of the building, bringing
Right.
in elements kind of around the building, and especially around the drive-through in that portion, definitely make it look
Yeah,
more of a
it shouldn't
service.
look like a different thing in the back than it does in the
Public
front.
presence.
It should look like the same business.
Yeah. And one more question. Will there be any bollards by the doors where or
At the entrance?
by the entrance, or even where the curbing is?
As far, protective bollards, you mean
Yeah.
at the, right now, there is, typically, there's no plans to put any bollards in front of the store. It's all, the entrances will all be curbed, everything will have a 6-inch reveal on the curbing, so, for the head-end parking, and this will be all open. Sidewalks will be unobstructive opening, so there was no plan for any bollards to be placed in the sidewalk.
Yeah, there's no customer seating in there, really.
Okay.
no, and
I mean, you're
if
talking-
anything, that,
Let's
you know,
play
that
the odds. I mean,
Booth's has actually had their entrance there before, which, you'd actually see more activity, which we're not gonna have. And
They had it in
the
the
sidewalk
center.
is very expansive, too. I mean, I think it's,
It's pretty wide.
yeah,
That's all. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this matter?
Sorry.
Seeing none?
Okay, where are we?
Motion to close public hearing.
It says to continue.
Second. Thank you, Emma.
All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye. 600.
To approve the request of MCC, is that what you want?
Yes.
Are you good?
Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the request of TMC New England LLC for a special permit pursuant to Section 4.3.2.22, drive-through of the zoning bylaws to permit a drive-through at 34 Cambridge Street, Crossroads Plaza, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit A attached as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
600.
Opposed?
Six, oh,
5-0.
sorry, 5-0.
I can't support that with
5-1.
safety issue.
510.
All
We're
right.
gonna do the minor engineering.
And-
Yes, I would also like to make a motion, Madam Chair, to approve the request of a minor engineering change for property located at 34 Cambridge Street to modify the site plan to install a one-lane drive-through along the rear of the proposed CVS, along with parking and circulation modifications as reflected on the site plan entitled CVS Pharmacy Store, number 10-23, Burlington Crossroads Shopping Center, 34 Cambridge Street, Burlington, Mass. 01803, 8010, it should be 01803, prepared by R.J. O'Connell and Associates Incorporated, dated August 13th, 2018, consisting of 12 sheets subject to the following revisions, terms, and conditions as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
510.
And
Thank you.
Is there
Thank
anything
you.
I
else?
think
That's it.
that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'll go get Jack. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take items 7N, 7O, and 7P together for discussion purposes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to take page you want.
Aye.
17, oh, no, sorry, 20. Items N, O, and P.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 700. Noel, did you finish off?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
It's all done.
All righty. A public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.5.10, automobile dealership which may include integrated structured parking from the zoning bylaws, 64 Cambridge Street, Herb Chambers, Cambridge Street LLC applicant. A public hearing application for approval of a site plan, 64 Cambridge Street, Herb Chambers, Cambridge Street LLC applicant. Discussion, application for approval of a minor engineering change, 64 Cambridge Street, Herb Chambers Street LLC applicant. Staff.
I will defer after their opening presentation,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
That's fine.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, again, Attorney Mark Vaughn with the law firm of Reamer Bronstein, representing the petitioner tonight, Herb Chambers Companies, in connection with the special permit and site plan application. Pleased to be before you. Got a few folks that I would like to introduce as part of our team, if I could. Mark Regent, who was architect with Regent Associates, the architectural firm.
Welcome.
Responsible for the nice colored rendering you have there. Also Chris Sparagus, who is our civil engineer with Williams and Sparagus, civil engineer of record. We have Rick Bryant, who is our traffic engineer with Stantec. I think many of you perhaps know Rick from his other work in town.
Which one's Rick?
I'm sorry, Rick.
Okay, thank you.
And John Welch, who is development director for Herb Chambers Companies. And also Rocco D'Antonio, who was development manager for Porsche North America, is here as well. So,
And there's one person with you you
I'm
didn't
sorry,
introduce.
Paul Beal, also with Regent Associates, works with Mark.
Welcome to you all.
Thank you. So we are pleased to be before you in connection with the proposal for 64 Cambridge Street. Just by way of background, as I'm sure the board is aware, I'll try not to be repetitive, as I know we've kind of talked about this previously in the context of the zoning bylaw amendment, which was passed by town meeting back in the spring. But Herb Chambers presently operates a combined Porsche and Audi dealership building at 62 Cambridge Street. That is a building where both brands are co-located in that building. I think, as we talked about before, at the time that building was built, that was the model and concept for many dealerships like that, where they would be co-located in the same building. However, over the past several years, both Audi and Porsche have been requiring that the brands be separated into separate buildings, really to provide a unique identity and to ensure a standard of quality and care for customer service and sale experience unique to their brands. So it's happened at many other locations, and where they also had Porsche and Audi in the same building, so they're anxious to do that here. So we are operating under a bylaw that was approved back in the spring at town meeting, whereby you can have an auto dealership with integrated structured parking on a lot where it is adjacent to an existing auto dealership, and also provided that it meets other criteria in terms of being within 200 feet of 12895 highway or ramp layout, and also at least 200 feet away from any nearest single-family dwelling district. So this site does qualify under that. I believe it's the only site that does meet the criteria set forth in that bylaw, as perhaps you recall from some of the discussion at that time. So the building is a building that would look exactly as it looks right there in that rendering. I think, as the board might be aware, they want to have an attractive building at this location, something that would be befitting of the Porsche brand, and that obviously is what they would like to provide, and that gives you a flavor for what it would look like. The building itself would be located on the site like this. This is a plan that Chris Faragis has put together that shows the location of the building as it sits on the site. And if you recall from before, the building is designed to have a lower level to the building, which would allow for inventory storage to be parked within and underneath the building. And there's actually a ramp at the back of the building that allows for vehicles to drive down to the below-grade floor where inventory would be stored. The benefit of that, Mr. Chairman and board members, is that by being able to provide that, we can store the vast majority of inventory under the building and therefore out of sight. At the site today, which is obviously was approved previously for inventory storage, there are presently 156 vehicles that are stored at that 64 Cambridge Street site. With the new building, we're able to locate the majority of those under the building. There'd be a small area of customer parking that would be located right out front. This is customer parking that is approximately 16 spaces. Chris, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I know you're right next to me, all right. 16 spaces that would be there for customer parking. And there'd also be a spot out and back where you'd see some parking as well for service vehicles, employees, and the like. So, but the surface parking goes down from 156 down to 45, so with 85 being within the building. So,
Are there any cars for sale parked out that are not under?
Yes.
How many?
All the ones between the two buildings
So that line that's right against
would
the
likely be
green, Fine.
pre-owned inventory.
right there. Okay, how many are there?
On here,
16.
22.
Thank you.
But correct me if I'm wrong, those spaces are there
I wasn't
today,
sure.
but they're just flipped on the other side, correct? So we're not adding those spaces. They're being repositioned there, but they actually exist.
That's correct. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go into that when in my
Yeah.
review of the site
Okay,
plan.
all
And
right.
the ones in the back, that is not for cars that are for sale, those are
And-
for,
I think employee service vehicle being stored there on occasion, but yeah, that's the plan. So,
what do you mean by a service vehicle?
well, someone that has their vehicle serviced within the
Oh,
Porsche
okay.
building might be put there afterwards
Okay,
until they come and
thank
get it. So the plan, we have another plan that shows how the two different buildings here would.
Before you move that sheet away, what are those two things there?
Oh, look at you with the little
Wow.
thing.
What are those?
The larger of the two is a dumpster enclosure,
All right,
and the whiter one there, the smaller one, is used parts to be returned.
It's electric battery
Right.
storage, which we can,
Effectively, it's,
which we can explain.
the batteries for electric cars
Yeah.
would be stored there to be picked up.
so hazardous material of some kind, does that require a permit of
Why are
special?
they stored outside?
Because they
Oh,
could explode,
Keep
get
it out of the
fire.
way.
Pardon
They're
me?
big.
They're huge.
Yeah, this is a vehicle that is in production for Porsche that is an electric vehicle, and they actually have an electric battery that is about 12 feet long, about a foot wide. I'm sorry? 8 by 4 by 2. Okay, and it weighs about 1,000 pounds? And the weight? 1,500 pounds. Okay, about 1,500 pounds.
So this will be for, batteries for disposal will be placed there?
It would be, as I understand it, and Rocco, please correct me if I'm wrong, but when a customer has a battery that has come to the point of its end of its useful life, the battery would be put out there for a day or two so that a specialized vehicle would come and be able to have access to it, to be able to pick it up and remove it.
That would be in an enclosure of some kind?
It would be enclosed, and that's correct, yes. So it's simply for convenience, so that, as you might imagine, a 1,500-pound battery is not the easiest thing to access and move. So it's important for it to be in a location where, you know, they don't have to pull within the building and whatnot. So, but it's not traditional batteries that all of us have in your cars, where it's not that type of thing that's being stored there. It's a pretty involved, specialized.
So it's a lithium-ion battery, not a lead acid? Alrighty.
May I make
Sorry,
a comment while the picture's there?
Sure.
I know along the front, in front of the new building, that nice strip of green grass, and if I'm correct, we spent a significant amount of time putting nice trees, bushes. It took us a lot to get it done. And for me to look and see that gone, I said, wait a minute, you know, we had that there for the parking and so forth, and so I might say, if you're gonna do that, make an offer to the town to use those trees, because recreation and so forth, sometimes is a place to use those.
Why do they
Because
have to be
it looks to
moved
me like it's all gone, it's just green grass in front of there, and you're just gonna see the dealership instead of what before.
We can certainly speak to that.
Sure.
Paul, I mean,
It's up to the chairman.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about the additional curb cut, too.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Extensive conversation.
Chris is gonna get into that, but just, why don't I introduce Chris now, and he can kind of walk through some of the site plan elements, but just
Before we move
on the,
though, can I just ask about that little white square again? How many of those giant batteries could be held there at a time? Just one at a time? It wouldn't hold more than one? Okay, thank you.
And is the fire department aware that that's what's in there? Do you need some type of special permit to store that? Because they can spontaneously combust.
That'd be a help.
I don't believe that it's something that, I mean, we can certainly look into it. We have discussed it with the Board of Health environmental engineer to make sure it's appropriately, registered, if it has to, be filed as under a hazardous material data form or whatnot, but it's not something that is gonna be sitting out there in the hot sun for days. It's something that would be there for a day or.
I don't think the spontaneous combustion of lithium-ion batteries is a function of sun. Could you make a note to contact the fire department? Thank you.
You're right, Jack, they should know it's there.
But those batteries are in cars anyway, right? Yeah. I mean, and they're gonna be all over the lot, within cars.
They're gonna be all over the roads, too.
So it's not anything other than, you're gonna have that on the lot
In the
in
cars.
bigger numbers than that one.
If it's been taken out of a car, it might be because it's defective.
Yeah.
I just think the fire department should be aware of what's there.
What ends up happening, Mr. Chair, Chris Spurrett, is after the useful life of an EV battery, there is an aftermarket. So they do end up destined for other uses, because there's still life in them, but not enough to operate the vehicle. And so they're used to store electric charges at power plants as backup systems and that sort of thing. So they do have a reuse, if you will. And that's sort of just a temporary, holding spot until it's destined for the next
So
stop.
are they more likely to explode after they've reached their life expectancy or their effective life expectancy?
Well, they don't have the percentage ability to hold a charge after a certain period of time, but they still have the ability to hold some charge, and so they're reused in another way.
To his concern,
My concern is not, Joe, for a depleted one, but for a defective one that may have a short circuit of some kind.
Fire department.
We'll look into that, so.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Why don't I have Chris walk through just the site plan elements if he could, and try not to be repetitive of what I said the best we can, but.
This microphone is working okay? All right, so I'm going to stand up so I can point to the plan easier, and I'm just going to take you through the site plan a little bit and back up to a bigger view. Of course, everyone's pretty familiar with the site. You know, we're at exit 33 on 128. You know, just east of Burlington Mall Road, in between the two ramps here that service exit 33 on this side of the highway. The property that comprises 64, that's the existing vehicle storage lot, is just about 1.5 acres, and we're located in the south central section of town here. Surrounding us, we have quite a bit of existing vegetation and growth. As you can see here, we're bordered, and here's our north arrow here just to orient ourselves. So to the north and west, of course, is Cambridge Street, and the ramp over to the east. The other dealership, the existing Porsche Audi dealership, to the west and south. And we're also bordered by some wetland resources, which show up a little bit better on this larger scale plan. You can see on the other side of the ramp from 128 is a fairly large wetland system. And so we went out and located that. The buffer zone, if you will, the 100-foot buffer zone, I'll show you in a little bit on our existing conditions plan, just comes onto our site. Our proposed activity is more than 85 feet from the wetland, and the wetland, of course, is on the other side of the ramp here. There's also another wetland across the street on the other side of Cambridge Street, but its buffer zone doesn't extend onto our property. We will be filing a notice of intent because of that minor activity with the Conservation Commission. Back a couple of months ago, we met with John Keeley to introduce him to the project, as we did with some of the other departments. And Mr. Keeley informed us that there are a couple of outstanding orders of condition for the previous projects that need to be cleared up before the commission will consider the notice of intent application. And so we've been working closely with John to tie up loose ends on those existing permits, and we're in the process of filing a certificate of compliance requests for those. And John felt it would be a good idea to file those requests and the notice of intent simultaneously. Our notice of intent filing, of course, is ready to go for the 64 project. So zooming in a little bit, we're at a 20 scale here. You can see the existing 64 property a little bit better, and I'll flip over to our site plans. This is a very large scale plan that shows our locus in relationship to a much larger area. And I'll be flipping back and forth between our existing conditions plan and the proposed conditions plan so I can show you the differences between the two as we show you what the proposed improvements look like as compared to what's out there today. And so here's our 1.5 acre parcel, which is the existing conditions, the existing vehicle storage lot, and it's primarily a paved surface that was the subject of a previous permit that was secured by Herb Chambers. Elevation-wise, on the ground, the lay of the land, if you will, the site slopes downhill. This is the high side on the west side of the property at approximately elevation 195, and it slopes downhill from west to east about 5 feet, and so it's about 5 feet lower on this end of the project. When the vehicle storage lot was designed and constructed, it needed a retaining wall on the low side. For the proposed improvements, I'm going to show you that in order to have the building sitting on the lot, it takes up quite a bit of the lot, and it's important that it's level all the way around. And in order to accomplish that, I'm going to show you how we're going to be increasing the height of this retaining wall in order to lift up the site on this downhill side to level the lot more. And I'll show you how we're proposing to use some of the existing materials that are on the site that are not that's not very old. We're hoping to reuse some of the equipment, and I'll show you the equipment in particular that I'm talking about.
How high will that wall be as it's proposed?
I beg your pardon?
How high will the wall be as it's proposed?
So in the existing condition, the bottom of the wall is down at elevation 183, and the top of the wall, that's at the lowest point, approximately elevation 183. At the top of the wall, we're approximately elevation 191. So it's 7 to 8 feet high today.
Today, what will it be?
So it will be as many as 5 feet higher in order to 4 to 5 feet higher than that.
12 to 13 foot wall.
In some sections, yep. In order to support the grading program for the new Porsche building.
Are you bringing in fill, are you doing cut and fill, or are you using the building excavation for fill?
So it's going to be a combination. We're going to have a lower level, as you heard, for the lower level parking, and so that's going to generate some fill material. We haven't done a final cut and fill. If I were to guess, because of the footprint of the building, I believe that we're going to be close to net even, because the building takes up so much of the lot. We may even have some material that we have to export, but we can do that calculation, for the next time we get together, so you have a better idea.
Have you done testing of that soil because of prior uses?
Yes, that was something that was reviewed in detail by the Board of Health recently when we appeared in
Board
front
of
of them.
Health has covered it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine.
So again, primarily paved. This rectangle that I've highlighted here in yellow was a previous building location. Okay, I can use a different color.
Thank you.
That's okay. This pad, if you will, measures about 7,500 square feet or so, and it's a gravel surface that used to house one of the previous buildings before the lot was turned into the vehicle storage lot. So that's sort of the extent of the existing conditions, and of course there is access from 64 to 62 via 2 existing driveways here and here. Those driveways are going to remain in a slightly different configuration.
And the elevation there is not going to change?
That's correct. Because our site plan set is pretty extensive, we felt it was necessary because we're going to be working with the Conservation Commission on closing out some permits. We did an updated as-built survey of 62, and it sort of completes the picture. So there are some extra plans that we normally wouldn't have for 64. This is our proposed grading and drainage plan for the 64 project, and one of the important elements of the project is a new curb cut at this location here. You may recall that the use previous to the existing storage lot, it was a business that had a property that had a couple of different businesses on it, and there were 2 curb cuts on the property way back when, before both of them.
Have since been closed, correct?
That's correct.
It's a mattress store. It did not have a very intensive use.
Mattress store, and then there was a granite and marble fabricator towards the back of the site.
As you know, this property is under separate ownership, owned outright by a related entity of the Herb Chambers companies. And it's important to the company that this property be able to stand on its own, and that's the reason why we're proposing
You
a
say
separate
that is
curb
not
cut.
owned by any Herb Chambers company, or it is owned by Herb?
It is.
It is?
Yeah.
It's the other one that's,
Under a lease agreement.
okay, the one to the south is under lease agreement?
That's right, number
Okay,
62.
fine.
And so that is the reason, the primary reason why we're proposing a curb cut, a new curb cut onto Cambridge Street. The proposed layout, if you will, of the project, this is the grading plan, so it shows our proposed grading scheme. And you can see on the downhill side of the property, we're proposing to fill as much as 4 to 5 feet in order to have the access points, and there are many of them around the building, come out at the same elevation so that it's relatively level as someone who drives around the building or walks around the building, in and out of the building. The access to the underground parking is on the back side of the building, where where cars will come in and come down into the lower level. There's another sheet in our plan set that shows the parking layout on that lower level. Again, on the surface, we have a circular pattern of access around the entire building. This grading plan shows additional elements, including our proposed drainage system. And we are proposing a drainage system that is consistent with the existing conditions. If I were to flip back to the existing conditions plan real quick, the vehicle storage lot has an underground infiltration system that collects stormwater within the parking lot through a series of what we call best management practices, a series of deep sump catch basins to a sediment separation device, a proprietary device that treats the stormwater before it discharges into this rectangular shape here, which is the underground chambers. They're high-density polyethylene plastic chambers, and then there's an overflow that comes out of the property, out of this. It acts very much as a detention basin. So what we're proposing to do, because these particular chambers are not very old, the improvements were done not too long ago, and so we're proposing to use the same chambers in a slightly different configuration in order to support the proposed building. And so because we're leveling the site, we're going to have water flowing in a couple of different directions, and so we're proposing 2 underground stormwater management areas, and we're proposing to actually excavate and unearth the previous ones, and if we can salvage them and not damage them, we're proposing the same model number, and so we'd like to try to reuse those if we can. In addition, we are collecting stormwater on the paved surfaces very similar to what the existing parking lot does, and that's through a series of deep sump catch basins that run to one of 2 proprietary sediment removing devices. And once again, we're proposing to reuse the existing separation devices that are in the parking lot as part of our proposed design.
Is that an infiltration system?
Yes, the ultimate discharge point, these 2 rectangles, are underground infiltration systems.
So you've checked the water table. You're pretty close to an extensive wetlands which gets pretty high in the spring with runoff. Have you calculated the elevation difference?
We have, and what we did is one of our approved soil evaluators from our office went out with Christine Mathis, who witnessed the test hole excavations where we established estimated seasonal high groundwater table. And then once we established those elevations, these infiltration chambers are set 2 feet, the bottoms of the infiltration chambers are set 2 feet above that estimated seasonal high groundwater table to comply with DEP stormwater management standards. And then we work our way backwards from there.
The elevation of 2 feet below is what relative to the floor of the below-ground inventory storage?
So the garage floor elevation is roughly, according to our plan, elevation 183. If I were to flip over to our utility plan, the bottom of the chambers is down at 187.25.
So the floor of the garage is below the high seasonal water table?
By approximately 9 inches. Typically what we do in those cases, this is not unlike an installation of infiltration chambers for residential projects. We maintain a minimum of 10 to 12 feet from infiltration, subsurface infiltration devices from, let's say, a full basement in a home.
So the floor drains down below, and you're going to have a ramp that's going to collect rainwater. What are you going to do with the drainage inside?
Sure. That falls under the jurisdiction of the plumbing code. Inside the building, there'll be a series of catch basins that will collect any snow melt, let's say, or rainwater that may happen to end up down there. And there'll be a pumping system that'll pump that water into the town sewer system. That's how parking garage water is handled. That's a good segue to our utility plan. So the utility plan, of course, is color-coded. And what we're proposing to do is use existing utility services that come off of Cambridge Street so that we don't have to go out to Cambridge Street to dig up for water or for sewer. So we've identified our locations. Starting with the sewer, we're proposing to tie into the existing sewer service for this property at this location, and we're going to bring it around and tie it into the main utility area of the building back here. Similarly, we're going to do the same thing with our proposed water service that's shown in the blue color that comes around and back in. And then for electric, we've shown electric coming in from a utility pole in front of the project here, and again, running it back to this main location here.
Sewer will be all gravity flow, or are you going to have pumps?
There will be no need for a pump for sanitary, except for the floor drains in the garage below. And again, this plan also shows the specific locations with elevations for each of our drainage collection devices. There are a series of pipes and drains that run to this infiltration chamber, and then a series of catch basins and pipes that run to this one. This project is also going to be served by natural gas. There's natural gas available on site. Existing service comes onto the property, and that's how the building is going to be heated.
So you're not going to have to make a connection, you've got it already.
That's
You're not
correct.
locked out.
That's correct. That makes it a little bit easier, for working in the highway, of course. I had a whole discussion on stormwater management to take you through the 10 stormwater management standards. I can tell you that our stormwater management report, which has already been reviewed preliminarily by Christine Mathis, complies with each of the 10 DEP standards for stormwater. So those are the DEP regulations at the state level, in addition to the town's stormwater bylaw and regulations.
Hold on that. Staff, have you got a report from Christine, or you'll be meeting with her on that?
I'm not sure if she's commented yet, but between Christine and when they file the NOI, we'll be
You'll cover it then,
discussing
okay.
So I can tell you that we do comply with DEP stormwater management standards, and that takes care of our stormwater management, if you will. Moving on to site lighting. If I can take you to back to our existing conditions plan for a minute. The existing lighting scheme in the parking lot utilizes some LED area lamps that are mounted on poles, a typical setup for a parking lot like this. And on this plan, we've highlighted them in blue. There are 20 pole-mounted lights that shine light into the parking area here for these inventory vehicles. And
That's the current situation?
that's the existing condition.
Okay.
Okay.
So there are 20 existing lights, and they're located at various locations in order to balance the light levels across the site. So what we've been able to do with our photometric plan is that we're reusing some of those existing fixtures and lamps. We're going to be cutting down the amount of poles from 20 to 13. And of course, the building is going to take up much more of the site, so we don't need as much light as there is out there today, because the building takes up quite a bit of it. And so along the eastern side of the property, where you see these fixtures here, these are existing fixtures that don't have to move. And so we're going to keep them exactly where they are after the wall is reconstructed to be elevated approximately 4 to 5 feet. Then we have a series of B lamps, which are also existing light poles.
You say B, what does that mean? It's not LED?
No, they're all LED, but we've separated or divided the fixtures into 3 categories on our table here, and then they're separated into new fixtures, fixtures that are going to be relocated, and existing fixtures to remain.
You use the term bead. I don't know what that means.
It's just an arbitrary letter that we use as a key.
Oh, B.
B as in boy.
Okay, I thought you said B.
Line B.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So
Said bead too.
So I'll start with the letter A, right? A, B,
All
C.
right,
So,
fine.
so A are going to be new fixtures along this side of the property. There are 4. The letter B as in boy are existing light fixtures that we're just picking up and relocating, repositioning them so that they are more balanced in relationship to the building. And then again, I mentioned the C series. Those are existing lamps that their position is not going to change from the existing condition to the proposed.
Are the B lights along the grass area that's next to the street?
That's correct.
in
There
that
are
grass
three,
area.
there are three B lights that are proposed over in the grass area, and there's another one that we're moving to a different location back here.
Any wall-mounted lights on the building?
There will be, for security purposes, in order to meet building code requirements. We typically don't show those types of lights on our photometric plan, but at each of the entrances, the building code requires, minimum lighting for safety purposes.
Are those all the lights, A, B, and C, all the same height?
Yes, I believe they're all 22-foot mounting heights.
Are they any particular design to them?
So they're the existing light that's out there, so we used to refer to them as shoebox style, but now it's a little bit different with LED fixtures. The shoebox used to provide a shield on four sides sometimes to help us direct the light, but now with the LED lamps, we can actually internally, point them in different directions. They look like the old shoebox style. They're black with a black square at the top. That color tends to blend into the landscape very much like a black chain link fence does along the perimeter of a property.
Do they all need to be, what's the height of, you know what the height of it is?
Yeah, 22 feet.
22 feet, do they all need to be 20, that's good, pretty high.
It is what the existing lighting scheme is now. Our mission was to try to have as little change, as possible on the site. And so the existing poles are 22 foot high, and so we just ran with that same height.
'Cause I'm wondering, I know that the ones that you referred to as the C, which are gonna stay where they are.
Joe, the folks can't hear you. Microphone.
The ones that you referred to as the C that are gonna stay where they are, that I can understand those, the height of those being, and even the ones, but I'm wondering if the ones, there are only 3 out of the street, I'm wondering if those can be either like a lower light or something a little more, a different decor that would maybe fit into the landscape a little bit better or something.
Less intrusive.
Yeah.
So just to compare, we can certainly look at that. Just for comparison purposes, if you were to look back at our existing conditions, in the existing condition there are 2, I guess there are 3 pole-mounted lights out front here in the existing condition, and we're proposing 3 in a slightly different
So you're moving
location.
closer to the street.
More centrally located. One of the things that's happened over
Are you
time.
moving closer to the street, though?
That's a good question. The short answer is yes.
Okay.
And I'll go into that when I discuss the landscaping plan, which,
Okay.
and we'll go into that.
And the northernmost one is going to be 5 feet higher because of the additional fill.
That's correct. They're gonna, because the land is coming up, it'll still be 22 feet, but as compared to what you see today, this light will actually be a little bit higher. So that leads me into the discussion on landscaping. And it is true that in the existing condition, that the existing row of parking that's closest to Cambridge Street is currently slopes from uphill to downhill. As I mentioned, it's about 4 to 5 feet across the property, and then we have the existing berm like feature that's out front, and it's heavily landscaped. The existing condition here, if I were to grab my scale real quick. I just want to give you some relative numbers as far as what those setbacks are, just so that you can understand how our proposed parking is encroaching into the existing landscaping there. So in the existing condition, from our property line to the back edge of pavement along that existing row of parking, it's about 20 feet.
20 feet
From the property line?
parking to the street.
This pink line represents the actual right-of-way line. And then from the right-of-way line to the back edge of sidewalk, which is out on, this shows in this tan color, the existing sidewalk here. So from the property line, this plan is the same scale. From the property line out to the sidewalk, which is not changing, that distance varies anywhere from 10 to 15 feet.
On this plan here, can you just show me, just with your finger, where the current parked cars are? How close they are to Cambridge Street?
Sure, so they don't show on this aerial image, and we don't have the luxury sometimes of being able to get one that shows the existing condition. Interestingly enough, when we selected this one, we realized that in the background was the lay of the land before the
Before the landscaping was done?
That's right. So if you can see here, there are actually cars all in here, all the way up to the back edge of the sidewalk.
So for the next meeting, perhaps you would be able to show us what the existing condition is now, where the cars are in relation to that grassy area.
Right, and that's what I'm describing here. So it's 20 feet from the back edge of the existing curbing to the property line
To the property line. Where are the cars?
today.
Where are the cars?
Where are the cars?
The cars are parked just on
Right
the other
along
side,
that
right
20
along that 20
foot
feet.
line.
That's correct.
And then where will they be in the proposed?
So in the proposed condition, I'll flip over to the landscaping plan real quick. So this is the proposed condition plan. And so you see the shape. Previously, I just mentioned that this buffer was 20 feet.
Yes.
And so that's going to shrink along here. We're proposing to shrink it to 10 feet across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parking spaces before it starts to widen out in this area to as wide as 30 feet.
So it's basically getting cut in half at the.
Across a certain section of it.
Southernmost
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
okay.
So, I mean, I think this helps to, this plan shows,
Yeah.
Robert, if I could, that, you know, what we're proposing for landscape area along here is very much gonna be consistent with what's in front of the existing dealership there.
Mark,
So,
you know I'm not gonna go for that.
well, look, all I'm gonna say to you.
How long did we work on
Look,
that?
if I could, respectfully, what was before the board previously for an inventory storage lot, I recognize that there was a lot of time and effort that was spent by the board to develop a landscape plan because the desire was to hide that inventory storage lot, so it wasn't visible from the road. But just let me finish. That was a different project from what we're talking about here. Now we're talking
I know
about
what we're
having it.
talking about. I understand the difference.
Now we're
Mark.
talking about having a
I'm not gonna
dealer-
go for it, but I understand the difference.
Okay, I'm just trying to explain that, you know, obviously for a new building, which you don't want to hide with, you know, a
You don't
forest of
want to hide,
trees.
yes.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone, I don't think anyone would expect to have a new building that would be not visible for people that want to be able to access it and do business there.
I'm sure
So,
you're right.
And so, I mean,
No
we.
business owner would want that.
Yeah,
you're
I
right.
mean, we can follow up with you. We'll show you what our landscape plan is. I mean, I
Well,
think that if you.
You said it's gonna be similar to what's in front of the existing Porsche Audi dealership, correct?
Yeah, in terms of the total depth, I
Right.
mean, the intention is to have something that's very attractive, Barbara, in terms of
What's in
just.
front of the existing Porsche Audi dealership, though, is like 4 trees and some shrubs.
There's, you know, seasonal plantings that they do, there's trees, there's shrubs and
It
whatnot,
doesn't
so.
compare to what is in front
You
of the
may have to
site
go
now.
back to the Board of Appeals, because they were the ones that required us to do
Yeah.
those plantings, I believe, did they not?
Well, it was a,
Bill?
see, that's where,
This is a
Okay,
new site
what,
plan.
I think what he's saying, or trying to say, is that the terms and conditions that were sent to us by the Board of Appeals no longer apply. And therefore, he feels he's no longer obligated, and we are no longer obligated to look at the Board of Appeals. So whatever conditions we apply based upon what we want, not what the Board of Appeals sent us.
Agreed.
I think that's a fair summary. I mean, I think that, you know, if someone were proposing an office building here, a retail building,
I understand,
whatever,
but-
then, you know, the
But the
board would look
conditions
at.
that we imposed last time were as sent to us by the Board of Appeals. We now, in our discretion, apply our standards, not the Board of Appeals standards, and you may not like them.
Or we may like them, but, yeah, no, I understand. I mean, the
Okay.
landscaping is, I think that you'll find that it's very much consistent with what you would see at 62 Cambridge Street, and, look, the intention here is to have something that's very attractive and something that, you know, is gonna be appropriate for the town,
So is
so.
but it's not, that's not accurate though, right, as far as landscaping and?
In scale, no.
Here, it's actually, it's a lot heavier landscaped than what you see here, and I can explain that a little bit further if you'd like.
Well, I'm wondering if you can bring a rendering that has exactly what you're proposing.
That makes sense.
Including the lighting, including all the landscape, everything that you're gonna propose, so that we can actually see it.
That's a great idea.
With elevations on it.
Right, everything, just exactly as it's gonna be, and that would be so much easier to picture and be able to, you know, I mean, I wanna see what the lights are gonna look at, you know, because again, I know the lights, you need certain lighting and high lighting, at least in the back and the side, but the front, I'm not necessarily convinced that you need that higher lighting in the front. Especially there's 3 lights there, you know, so I'd like to see how it all fits in, you know?
Neighbors.
I mean, if you did an accurate rendering, it would really reduce the need for a lot of explanation.
Yeah.
The explanation really, you know, I mean.
Is there gonna be
picture's
indirect
gonna
lighting?
tell much more than an explanation would be.
Is there gonna be indirect lighting illuminating the building?
From the ground up, if you
Yep.
will.
No, just the light that spreads out of the building itself through the glass.
So the windowless portion of the building is not gonna be reflecting light or illuminated in any way?
Well, the Porsche sign probably.
Not planning to.
The Porsche sign must be
Okay.
illuminated, right?
Well, I just don't want something to look like the Starship
And the
Enterprise
small
landed there and
Burlington
is all lit up.
Right, the only LED lighting that we have that's area lighting outside the building are the 13 proposed pole-mounted lights.
And 2 wall lightings, or 2 entrance wall lit, the face is not gonna be wall lit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was a shake of that was a yes, a no, or a what?
So, Mr. Chairman, your question again, I'm sorry?
The face of the building, when I asked about wall lights earlier, you said by building code at entrances. What I'm asking about is the face of the building. Are you gonna have wall lights there illuminating the face of the building other than at the entrances, the 2 entrances?
No.
So at night, when it's dark and the building's closed, that face of the building's gonna be dark?
Correct.
Okay. Other than for maybe your sign, that those signs gonna be illuminated?
Internal lights wouldn't be on? You won't have internal lights on showing
When
the
the
cars?
building is closed, there will be a few lights on in the showroom
Right.
as required by code. Exit doors require a small amount of egress lighting. That's all there would be.
Okay.
And so I saved the landscaping for last, and that was so once again, the proposed landscaping plan shows the existing area that's going to remain, that we're proposing to remain, and this plan shows that it varies anywhere from 10 feet wide between the property line and the parking to 30 feet wide over in this area here. That's existing landscaping to remain. And the way we're able to accomplish that is that our grading program is such that it kind of fits into the berm, so we don't have to rip it all up, if you will. You know, the way it was explained to us is that the berm was there was a lot of time spent on the berm and the landscaping, and it was the source of a lot of contention, and it needed to be done properly, and there was a lot of back and forth to shield the parking lot. And so we did our best to grade the parking lot such that we wouldn't have to, completely wipe it out. And that's...
I don't understand what you mean. So you're not removing the berm, it's staying at the same height that it is now?
That's correct.
But you've graded the parking lot
Up to the top.
Higher, so you can...
higher, so
That's right.
the effect of the berm is basically eliminated.
The parking lot now behind the berm is going to be just about the same height as the top of the berm today.
So this
So there's no
building,
berm.
So it's not a berm.
so this building, height-wise, compared to the other building, is gonna be a lot higher?
I believe as you come down Cambridge Street, from south to north or, west to east, the elevation of the land is higher as you head back in that direction. Our existing conditions plan,
Well, I'm saying, just if you were to take the level of the other building, of this building, it would be how much higher?
Trying to wake us up.
We have a 3 or 4 sheet existing conditions plan, so we have an as-built 62. It has all of the grades of the parking lots. I'll quickly tell you, just outside the existing Portiati building, what the elevation is compared to our proposed building elevation. Let's get this back up on the board here.
The proposed building will be 26 feet high.
The ground.
From the ground
No,
to the top of the
so
roof.
You've talked about elevation,
So if you
right?
took the other building roof,
The existing building, you mean?
the existing building, how much higher will the roof of this building be?
Whatever the grade difference is, will be the same,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
about the same as the
So,
roof.
so what will that be? So what, I'm just wondering what the
Uh,
roof height, because I know you can, if you put the grade up 40 feet, then, maybe it's 40 feet high. I don't,
Right, whatever the difference in.
I think you
in
said you,
ground,
I think you have the
floor
elevations.
elevation is between the two, that'll be the
Yeah,
same.
sure, I think what Joe's asking for is an elevation number, and you've got
The
that,
building heights are the same,
Correct.
but,
Within a foot.
above grade.
well, the building
No
height,
significant noticeable.
right, I understand
Okay.
that, but
Okay.
then, so now we just
He's
need to
got
know.
the-
Okay,
what
let's let the engineer give us the elevation. He's got elevations on his
So,
plans.
we took spot shots on the floor of the existing Porsche Audi building, and we're at elevation 196,
first
Okay.
floor.
first floor, and that's obviously, it doesn't have a basement level.
And that's the level of the parking lot, too.
Just outside the
Roughly.
Just outside the building.
Yeah.
And for our proposed building, our proposed floor elevation is elevation 195. When you look at the buildings, it's going to be hard to tell the 1 foot difference.
Okay,
but
so they're
we
gonna
are a
look like
little
they're the
bit
same
low-
height.
We are a little bit lower. by a
Does that
foot.
answer your question, Joe?
so that's what the floor level's gonna be. So obviously, the same height building, so it's roughly gonna be, so the roof of one is gonna sit maybe a foot higher than the roof of the other one?
That's correct.
Okay.
And
Okay.
this 64 site will be a foot lower.
Oh, so then,
So how is
then the
that?
64 side will be a foot lower. The roof will be a foot lower.
The roof will
The-
only be a
Both
foot,
buildings are effectively the same height.
a foot difference, really.
That's right.
Yeah,
So how is that gonna work? I'm not sure how that's gonna work, because you said that, so if you took the berm that exists now, that's a lot higher than the level of the other one. I mean, the same building is gonna be exposed, the same
So think about it like this.
height of the building will be
The height
exposed.
of the berm
Yeah.
is roughly elevation 194 and a half.
The top of the berm?
That's top of the berm today. If you recall,
Where?
the parking lot today slopes,
Okay.
from 195 down
Okay.
to 190. And so some of the parking lot, is hidden, if you will, behind that.
So
berm.
basically, when you fill to meet the berm, the ground of what is now the parking lot, the ground level will be roughly the same ground level as the existing building,
Mhm. Within a foot.
within a foot.
Yeah, a foot lower.
All right.
All right, what else you need to tell us?
That was the end of my formal presentation, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. But obviously, our whole team is here to answer any questions. you may
Okay.
have.
But before I went to them, I had asked staff, and staff wanted to, is there any questions you have based upon this? Any areas you want them to bring more information?
Yes and yes. So, overall, how I've been kind of looking at this, and I had the same conversation when we were going through the PD process, is I think it's important to understand how these sites work together, but also independently. And in terms of circulation, car carrier circulation, this truck that's gonna pick up the battery
Yeah, we
circulation.
haven't asked about the car carrier circulation.
On my checklist.
Okay, it's online
No,
too.
not yet, but I mean, these are kind of the things that I want to flesh out a little bit as we continue the dialogue between this meeting and next meeting. And also understand the impact. I mean, right now we have Porsche Audi together. Now that they're going to be separated, what does that mean for additional service, additional trips, I mean, I don't expect it's gonna be a lot more, but just understanding really the operation of the site as it is now and as it is when this is gonna
If
be
there
built.
wasn't an expected increase in business, they would not invest this.
Right, and just understanding that, I mean, and understanding what that means. So, I mean, those are kind of my larger issues, some of the smaller ones. Can you guys break down the size, the building and the structured parking square footage? And if not right now, for our next meeting coming up. Anyway, those are my main kind of things that I want to try to figure out and flesh out as we continue this. And just some of the, we were just trying to do some calculations, and I just wanted to understand how it broke down a little bit.
I can't sign this. This is CVS.
Okay, so I've got a footprint of 24,552 square feet. That's the ground level. There's a second floor of about 6,100 square feet, which is just office space.
You might not want to sign it because it's.
And the lower level is 21,500 square feet, which is here. It's all vehicle storage. There's the bottom of the ramp that you would come down. We're not putting parking under the service reception area.
Is that in the plan that we have that shows the underground parking layout?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so with that, I continue to want to talk a little bit more with departments. I know the fire department for a while has had some concerns. And I will admit, I haven't heard recent concerns, but previous concerns about behind the building, especially in the service area, of cars kind of parked wherever. And with this site being designed as tightly as it is, with the travel lanes really being critical that they remain open, just understanding how they're, as I said, I haven't heard a complaint for a while, but just how they're planning on.
You're talking about the maneuverability of fire trucks around the back?
Well, I had a question.
Fire trucks are, I mean, fire trucks especially, but any trucks. So.
Fire trucks and car carrier.
So as I said, circulation is kind of high on my list of trying to understand how the site's gonna work. But with that, I'll reserve any other comments. I know we're gonna be talking about the landscaping in front quite a bit, so.
Part of what, before I run to the board, are there any things that you want them to bring back to show, discuss, explain at the next meeting, other than what you've just touched upon?
Well, I already asked, but I want the fire truck radius as well as the car carrier turning maneuvers on both sites.
I could speak to the car carrier issue if you'd like, if it's an opportune time, but.
Sure, please, go ahead.
We have.
So, and if, Kristen, if the car carrier can get around, is it safe to assume the fire truck also can?
No.
I don't know.
Well, and I don't necessarily think that the car carrier needs to get around, it just
That's
needs
true.
to drop off.
But the fire truck needs to get around,
The fire truck
right?
needs to get around,
Okay.
yep.
So again, sites work together, obviously, but this is 62 Cambridge Street here. The site was designed so that a car carrier could come in and be able to go around the building like this, or also it can go in and back up like that. which I
That's
think
the
it does more
yes.
often. That's existing today.
Right.
So this shows those two different patterns and how that works and how it can work and how it does work in reality. They can come around like that, or alternatively, they can come in like that and then back up and then go out that way. I think this happens more typically, to be honest with you, in terms of the car carrier deliveries, but the site was designed to be able to accommodate that for both Porsche and Audi. And what we are proposing to do is that would also be the same route that they would do for Porsche as well, since the sites do work together. They're both Herb Chambers brands, and they would operate in sync. I mean, obviously, there's connections between the site here and here, so vehicles that are dropped off here for Porsche can go right through without having to go back onto the roadway, so we're not, affecting traffic on Cambridge Street by by that. So that's
So the,
the way I think realistically and practically it works, and I think it makes the most logical
So
sense.
you're using the southern property to service the northern property.
So what
The
would
southern
happen-
property is what you don't own.
Right.
Do you have some type of ongoing easement should that no longer be a Herb Chambers property? How do we guarantee going forward that the Porsche property will be able to handle a car carrier if they can't have access to the southern property?
Well, it's a long-term ground lease on that property. I think that there's at least 25 years that are left on it. So I don't think anything is going to be happening soon in that regard. I think that realistically, that would be the way that car carriers would act and service both sites for at least the next 25 years and probably even longer. Because I'm not seeing any history of Herb Chambers looking to sell dealerships or of the company looking to, not continue to own and hold. So,
So the short answer to all those words is there's no guarantee that you'll be able to accommodate a car carrier.
well, so I can tell you there's no formal easement that's on the other property, Jack. I mean, I think it's a lease whereby they have the right to be able to do that. I think,
So the northern property is dependent upon access to the southern property for car carrier purposes anyway.
to the extent that the car carrier is going to come onto the property, it would come onto 62.
Right.
I mean, I guess conceivably.
Design of the northern property does not provide for a car carrier coming onto
Right.
that
We-
property.
We didn't think
Okay.
it was rational at this point to design 64 so that we could have the car
Well,
carriers
the
come on.
building is such that it's so tight, you're
Yeah,
never
no, I
going to be
think-
able to do it.
So-
I think we could probably do it if we had to in terms of
Want to
tweaking
show
a
us
few
how at
things,
the next
but
meeting, how it can be done?
yeah.
We can look into
Can I
that,
ask-
yeah.
Can I ask a question of
Just
staff?
didn't seem to make a lot of sense to do it
On
when you
this?
have the ability to service it right next door.
Well, we got to look ahead.
So if, because right now, these two properties are, one is leased, and the other is owned, but by the same company. So if at some point in the future that should change, and Herb Chambers sells 64, or the lease changed, so they're no longer owned by the same entity or same company.
Control.
Even if this site were sold, and it was a competitor to Herb Chambers, Audi, then how would this work?
They park on the street.
I think one of the reasons the engineer gave early in his presentation for the extra driveway is in case something happened in the future. And I'm just using that same premise for access to fire trucks.
What extra
They're adding the driveway that's not there on the,
Well,
on
yeah,
six.
that's
Right,
the extra curb cut,
right.
the additional curb cut.
And
yeah.
I think the reason that was given is because they
Right.
didn't have full control of the other property. So I'm just
Right.
using that same premise to ask how that would impact a car carrier.
I'm concerned that they need each other without formal
Right.
agreements and/or that they can't try to accommodate something on this site.
Exactly, and then that also begs the question, if the car carrier can't get in and out of that property, how will the fire truck? And
Well,
that's a
they'll show
question
us-
for the fire
they'll show
department.
us the fire.
Yeah.
We have looked at the largest piece of fire apparatus to show that it can get around the building. So I think what might make sense is.
That's smaller than a car carrier?
It is, believe it or not.
It is, okay.
Yeah, we contacted the fire department to obtain those dimensions, and we do have a fire apparatus turning plan. We looked at the garbage trucks that service the property today to make sure that they can get in and out. So those two vehicles, we've proved those out.
So why don't we do this on the car carrier? I mean, I don't think it's logical to, build both sites so they can do it now, but why don't we look at how we could accommodate it on 64 and what modifications that might have to involve if in the future it needed to be done, just to be able to show you that it could be done if in the event that the sites had to become separate for that purpose.
I
So,
think that's a good
Okay.
idea.
all right,
Good.
so.
Anything further?
I'm all set for now.
All righty, why don't I start? Do you have anything we need to, department comments? Do we have more department comments still to come in, or is this these?
Yes.
We have more to come in, okay. Give us what you got.
Inspector of Buildings has no comments. DPW says favorable with comments. Fire Department at this moment is approving as submitted, just as an FYI. And then there's an approval with modifications, but it's all standard. Let's see, I'm looking for. I think DPW is just standard, Josh?
Probably, yes, for a new building, you know. new
Yeah, it just, the town standards for street openings and utility connections is underlined. Let's see,
Did you indicate you were not going to need any street openings?
Not for utilities, not at this time, no.
oh, okay. Board of Health is, looks like it's all their standard
Yeah, we have seen those,
C comments, this,
You've reviewed it.
yeah, we did.
You
We
reviewed
appeared
it.
before them last
Do
week.
you have any other boards you have to go to, or are we the last?
It would just be Conservation Commission, which,
Conservation,
yeah,
yeah,
but that's it.
conservation is favorable with condition. This project will require a notice of intent filing with the Conservation Commission. At this time, no filing has been submitted. The site, however, has several older filings that need to be closed out, and the project team is working towards getting that done before submitting the NOI, so.
What does that mean exactly? That there are some outstanding filings with the Conservation Commission that have to be addressed first?
Mr. Chair, can I explain?
Sure.
I would have said.
Sure, so there are three outstanding orders of condition. One for 62 Cambridge Street for the Porsche Audi building. So there was an order of conditions, and so you have to request a certificate of compliance and then prove to the commission that you've complied and address each of their conditions. It takes time it's a long list of conditions, so we're in the process of going through and just making.
This is for the existing
That's right.
62 site.
That's right. And so
When was that order of conditions from?
I believe it was 2004, if I remember correctly.
Oh, the bill was about, yeah. I mean, basically, it's just confirmation that all of that everything was built out in accordance with what the Conservation Commission approved, so.
And was it?
We have no reason to
Oh,
believe
you
it
don't
wasn't.
know?
but
Okay. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
that's what you're confirmed?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think it was just
Okay.
an oversight in terms of not following up at the time to close out the order and confirm that the work was done. And
Okay.
And there was another order during the construction process. During that public hearing process with the Conservation Commission, there was a need to go out to the site to drill geotechnical borings and because they didn't have a permit, the Concom required them to file another permit application during that other, that gave them permission to actually just drill the
holes.
Right,
Okay.
so obviously that was done and the building is up now, so that one's pretty simple. And then there's the order of conditions for the minor activity in the buffer zone for 64, the parking field. There are as-built, we've done an as-built plan and we're working through just submitting that request for certificate of compliance for each of those three.
And then there will be a new order of conditions for the proposed building.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. I'll start with you and work out.
Okay. I have a question about that building that's in the back of 62. Is that, what is that building currently used for? The white,
Gray.
yes.
Yeah, I believe it's like vehicle prep and storage, and I'm not exactly sure, but I think that building has been there since the site was originally built, but.
Question, is that building gonna remain, with the Porsche building that's currently there, the portion section is gonna be emptied, will that be able to be moved into that building and that building come down to make the circulation around the site better?
We're not proposing to have that building removed. You know, it functions well for Herb Chambers today, and, you know, they've spent a fair amount of money for it. And I think we can show that it's not gonna, that circulation isn't impeded here. And I think you can see here that there's plenty of room for people to get by there. So the plan is not to remove the building, to answer your question.
And on the new site, where will all, it's a much smaller site, snow, what's your snow removal plan and such?
So on our landscape plan, if you were to flip over to our sheet 13 of 16, we've shown clouded areas that are available for snow storage, and I'll just highlight them real quick. So I've highlighted roughly 3 areas. One of them is very narrow, but so is the driveway on that side. That will allow us to have some snow storage along the edge of that driveway, and then the 2 in the back. And if those areas were to be filled up, arrangements would have to be made to take the snow off site in order to keep our lanes open.
Okay. I guess I'm good for now.
Bill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question I have for now. What's the increase or decrease of impervious surface?
So you may recall that boxed area that I showed you is roughly 7,500 square feet. And so the reason why this is not a redevelopment project is because we do have an increase in impervious surface. It's a significant reduction in actual paved surface, or let's call it dirty impervious, and an increase in roof area runoff, which is considered clean by definition by DEP. So it's roughly an increase of 7,500 square feet. Next time we get together, I'm gonna just double check that, and I'll look through the drainage calcs just to make sure. But it's about that number, maybe a little bit more.
So you're saying it's because of that area where the building was before and back, yeah. So
That's correct.
But, you know, that was, I don't know if the board recalls, but that building was to have stayed back here, and it was gonna stay in place, and then they determined that it was not capable of being rebuilt. We ended up going through, I think it was a minor engineering change process on that, so that they could build a new building. So that building was never built, but there was planned at the time approved to have the building there, but, so, I'm not sure how that.
But it's not there today.
It's not there today, so I guess it's considered pervious because the gravel's there, but there was a building there before. I'm not talking about the granite building, I'm talking about there was a building in the rear, yeah.
But the
So,
change from the existing
from a technical
today
perspective,
to what you're proposing is an increase of 7,500 square feet.
Approximately.
That's
Now,
the
I'll
answer.
double check those numbers, but we wanted to be.
Getting back to Bill's question, have they answered what you wanted, Bill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else further, Bill? Ernie?
A few questions. The existing area in the existing building where the Porsches are being serviced and sold, what, you know, I know it relates to this, but not directly. What will that be used for in the future?
the intention would be for that to become all part of Audi, that building.
Okay.
So that would be subsumed within the Audi operation. I'm not exactly sure how, you know, the interior walls and everything would be demised, but it would become part of Audi's space. And if the board recalls, I mean, the requirement under the town meeting, the bylaw approved by town meeting is that it would be one brand at each location.
Right.
So we're not in a position to be able to, you know, put a second brand in that building.
In the building that has been referred to as being in the rear, is that on 62 or 64?
This, 62,
62, the old building.
correct.
Okay.
The detailing building.
Right, so on the, right. In the parking area out front by the old berm, is that customer parking? Is that what that's going to be?
It would be, yeah.
I really didn't pay, sorry, enough attention to your landscape plan when you showed it, but the landscape plan, especially since this building is going to be higher than the street, or the parking lot is going to be higher than the street, that landscaping there, I assume that's head-in parking, should be constructed to obscure the lights from the cars so they don't shine into the eyes of the drivers coming, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, so it would be very similar to this area here. I mean, this is, customer parking that they have along 62 Cambridge Street currently, so we're really just kind of mimicking that, so. I believe that there is low vegetation and whatnot along here, but that's something we can look into.
All right, could you please, because even if we didn't catch it on the first one, I want to make sure we catch it on the second one, if it is going to be a problem. If it's not a problem, then it's not a problem. The elevation, that's 195 there, and what's Cambridge Street right there? Any idea?
It's much lower, so if a car parked in those parking spaces will be above the top of the car, like the other lights.
Above the top
of the cars.
Oh, okay, so maybe it isn't as big a problem as I thought it was. And customer parking.
You're heading as much as 4.
That's all the questions I have right now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Go ahead.
I don't have any questions at this time for the applicant. I have a question for staff as to whether or not the residential neighbors have been informed, the ones that originally were the reason why they had to have.
So
when we did the, yes.
Nope, so the,
zoning change, when we did
the application has been sent to the abutters as required by statute in the 300 feet. The provision that you are discussing is 11 or 1,200, I don't remember the exact distance. And I don't believe anyone outside of what was statutorily required has been notified. But I can also let the applicant
that the applicant inform those neighbors that were in the original, who were originally informed when they came to us looking to turn this into a storage lot. They had to inform the residential neighbors that were closer than, I think it was 1,200 or 1,100 feet, I forget.
It was a setback of well over 1,000 feet, yes.
Yeah, I think we should inform those people. Would you be willing to do that?
I'm not sure what the rationale of it would be. I mean, that was a separate bylaw provision, Barbara? I mean, so that was, for the inventory storage lot, there was a provision that.
Call it a whim, I'm asking you to do it. Will you do it?
Let me speak to my client.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, I mean, we're not trying to avoid anyone or anything. I'm
Thank
just
you.
trying to not get too burdensome of a.
You can let
okay.
staff
All
know.
right, okay.
Thank you.
My turn?
Yes, Paul.
You're probably not going to like what I say, but you like me as a customer because I have 2 vehicles and they're both bought at Herb Chambers, and that's why you're here, to get people to buy
Porsches?
cars.
Couple of Porsches?
Yeah, no.
9/11.
Minor.
Correct.
Well, let's just say I have a little sedan and an SUV. So, but I was opposed to this. I said all along that I didn't think Burlington needed an auto mile. And we already had the Honda dealer and this dealer, and now we have Mercedes dealer. And my concern with this, that they, the argument was, well, the dealership was already there, so all we're doing is putting it in another building and so forth. But I'm convinced that this is going to significantly increase the intensity of these use. This is already a very busy street, and we're going to have more in and out there. And I was just opposed to it, and still am. So, I don't really have any comments. What it ends up with the rest of the board allowing, that's fine by me. I would have thought would have been nice if we could have had some kind of plantings and so forth out front where we lost that nice berm, which finally was growing out and looking what the Board of Appeals wanted it to look like. And in effect, what we've just done is take that parking lot and put a building on top of it, so.
Raise it, elevate the parking lot.
No, well, no, we still have a storage lot, which was what the original request was for, a storage lot. And that was why we got the conditions. And now we still have the storage lot, because they said the cars are gonna be underneath the building. So we still have the storage lot, but now we have a dealership on top of it.
But
At any rate.
But town meeting told us to do it, so.
Okay.
I was surprised because, you know, generally what I get from people is they're not interested in any increase of the density of Burlington. They figure, you know, they're happy with what we got.
Many times you have hit me over the head with, town meeting makes the laws and we only impose.
I don't believe I hit you over the
Well,
head.
let's not
There
stop
may
talking.
have, there may have been times, Ernie,
Hey,
when.
come on,
You wanted
stop.
to, but you didn't.
Deal with your questions.
Sorry.
You'll get back to you
Beg
when you
your
want.
pardon.
Paul, anything further?
No, that's
Joe?
fine.
So actually, my question is more, and at this point in time anyway, is more having to do with the disturbance of that lot on 64. And I only go back in history a few years when this was all being created, that storage lot was being created, and the buildings were being torn down. And we had a resident in town come before us on multiple meetings and was adamant about the fact that there had been, and again, I can't speak to the truth or fiction of this. I only know what he stood here and said, but he was adamant that there had been a lot of asbestos buried under that ground. And now the disturbance of that ground concerns me a little bit. Now it would be very pertinent and very, you know, important to know what's been buried under that ground before it gets disturbed, so.
You talking 64, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I mean, I
I
can
mean,
assure
You
you
did
when...
ask earlier about testing.
Yeah, I can
What
assure you
testing
when
has been
Herb
done?
Chambers bought it, they did a pretty exhaustive environmental analysis, as you might imagine, right? Anytime you're buying a piece of property to make sure. And, you know, it was a phase 1 and a phase 2 report done, and, you know, we'll certainly look into it, but I mean, we're not about to embark on something without understanding and knowing that there weren't contaminants there that would, you know, make this a problem or something that we couldn't do, but.
Right.
We'll,
I can't remember, quite honestly, if he said they had been buried in the past or if they had been buried when the buildings were taken down. You know, I don't know at what point he was talking about it. It just, you know, in thinking about what his concerns were, and he was adamant about it, I think it needs to be somehow, you know, addressed or looked into.
Well, I think
or-
if they're gonna be using any of the excavated soil as fill, they're gonna have to pass certain tests.
Well, if they're gonna disturb it, then we, you know, we really wanna know that the extensive tests are
They'll
done.
be doing more than disturbing and hauling it
borings.
off. They're gonna be disturbing it and spreading it somewhere else, so I think that's going to
Right.
trigger.
Well, I'm saying it's
some
paved now,
tests.
it's buried, so if it's disturbed, then there should be multiple borings done all around that whole site, you know, just to test the soil underneath, so.
Well,
Again,
I
I
think a lot
can't,
of that
I
paving's gonna
can't speak to the
disappear.
truth or the fiction of it. I only know what was said
Okay.
when the gentleman was standing in front of us, so.
Is that a Board of Health issue?
Yeah.
Something the Board
Yeah,
of
it
Health
would be.
can-
Yeah, so I think
Plus
it
the
needs to be at
selectmen
least
knows
brought
earth will
to
be.
it needs to be brought to the attention,
Yes,
you know.
absolutely.
Okay. Anything further, Joe?
No, that's it at this point.
Alrighty. The tandem parking section in the back there, that's going to be employees and serviced vehicles waiting to be serviced or having been serviced, waiting for customer pickup?
some service, inventory, and employee parking.
And how many spaces are there?
23.
Did I hear 23? I believe it's 23. Thank you, I'll just double check here, so I can flip over.
And how many employees will be there at the peak employee time?
I count 24.
Okay.
24.
And-
combination of,
You won't have more than 24 employees there at any one time?
We can provide an employee count. I don't have that information right
Do
now.
you have an option for off-site parking for employees?
What do you, by an option? I mean,
Well,
obviously, we.
if those 24, if all the spaces along between 64 and 62 are filled with inventory and display vehicles, and all the front are filled with, or reserved for customers, and you have more than 24 employees, where are they going to park?
Well,
And if they're going to be off-site, are they going to be off-site on the other property
Well, obviously, they could park on the other property if need
for
be.
the next 25 years?
At least, right?
Okay.
But, you know, why don't we, I'll look into what the employee count is,
So-
but, you know, if it, I mean, it would just be, it would mean less inventory being stored on there and more employee
Okay, so
parking.
let us know how you're going to handle
Right.
that, because I'm concerned there's not enough space there, and they're not as usable. Okay, I just want to, mention that I still have the same concern of visibility from the front coming down, and obviously, other people have addressed it. So do we know what it is we're going to ask them to address when they come back? You've ticked off a few things that you want them to address. You mentioned that, okay, so I'm just wondering what we're going to ask them to come back and talk to us about at the next meeting.
Well, between Chris and I think we've taken pretty good notes on some things that I know you want us to come back with, including the ability to accommodate car carrier access on 64 alone if we had to make that change in the future. But
In the 26th year.
the 26 year, yeah,
And-
yeah.
And also Joe's
I'll remind him.
request for, I think that's really important, for an actual rendering of what it will
Yeah,
actually
we-
look like.
we have that as well.
The
Yeah.
lighting,
The heights, everything.
the heights,
Right.
the landscape.
And it might be interesting to see that one of the renderings, at least a basic one of the buildings.
Side by side.
Being able to see both of
Yeah.
them, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, just so the board, I mean, this is identical to what was presented at town meeting in terms of the rendering of the building and the positioning of the building on the lot, so.
Did town meeting give you design approval? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just, trying to be upfront with you that we're not showing something that different from what was shown
I've heard a
at
number
that
of
time.
town meetings say over the years, they don't vote on pretty pictures, they vote on wording.
Understood.
So your pretty
Town
pictures
meeting's
are,
job isn't to handle the site plan and the layout and they also didn't discuss with you how the car carrier would get in there and how the fire trucks can get around. It's not their job to get that detailed.
No, I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying that yep.
okay. Sometimes less said better. All right. Okay, I think they have an idea of what it is we want. So this is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience, other than the people from Herb Chambers who want to speak? And there are none, okay?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of November 1st, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to continue to November 1st, 2018. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 700, Noel.
thank you very much.
Thanks for your
Thank you.
time, appreciate it.
All righty. Minutes, did everyone get a chance to review the minutes of August 16th, 2018?
Yep.
They didn't come through, I couldn't open them, and it was too late by the time.
You got a virus in your computer, huh?
No, it was odd the way it came through.
Yeah.
Probably knew it sent or whatever.
All righty.
And my only comment was I was still listed as the member clerk on those minutes, so.
Barbara is the member clerk after our
Yes.
research.
Okay.
Confirmed.
I am happy to relinquish the position if anyone else wants it.
You're still protesting, I guess. All right. So how many people are ready to vote on the minutes of August 16th?
I am.
3, 4, okay, we've got enough. All right. I sent some comments which have since been recorrected. Anyone else? Yeah, I know, when I got it, it was almost as if the printer wasn't working. It was, I don't know, maybe that was the problem you had. Yeah, it looked like,
Yeah, mine looked fine.
it's in the PDF somehow, but okay.
Motion.
Yeah,
I make a motion to accept the minutes of August 16th, 2018 as amended.
Second.
been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, oppose, abstain? 6,
Do we have an abstain?
2 abstains, 502. Discussion. Okay, Crossroads Public Art, I finally figured out what it was you were talking about, Bill. I've never seen it.
Where?
What are we talking
I-
about?
We're in the corner
If
of the
you're
block.
walking into the present CVS door,
Yeah.
In that
if you
corner.
step to the right and go around the corner,
Yeah.
there's a wall that's got movable magnetic refrigerator magnet type
Oh, wow.
words.
I never noticed that.
The wall on,
Yeah.
Pass it around. Hold on. It's at the corner of the Party Store and CVS, that kind of dead corner in there.
Yeah, where it
Oh,
pops
how
up.
long has that been there?
Not too long.
No idea.
Well, I
I
know
still haven't seen it.
What is
So I
it?
think that they're
I
just
saw
trying to.
it again today.
I'm not like in favor or not, or I'm just explaining. I think the purpose of it is to kind of activate the space. Similar, I saw something closer to the Marshalls. They had just a hula hoop on a
Oh, I
hook.
saw those hula hoops, yeah.
So I think it's just to, I'm not.
Engage the
Yeah.
pedestrians.
Yeah,
into some
that's all.
sort
I
of-
bet I'm
Keep the
not
kids busy
advocating
when the
for
mother's
it.
at Marshall's buying shoes.
Went away.
I think that's what the purpose.
What do they say?
So,
But-
yeah.
Whatever you want.
It says whatever they move around to say.
They provide you terms, and then you can put up anything you want. So when I first saw it, I was walking the site, so I could see it from where the CVS is planned, and I go, it looked very disheveled and unorganized, and to me, it looked like a whole pile of trash over there, just because everything was all over the place. So I passed by the hula hoop, and then they put down some words on the sidewalk, if you've seen those.
Yes.
Some words of,
Painted on the sidewalk?
yeah, enthusiast, I've got the
Yeah.
pictures of those too. They're trying to help you up a little bit,
Yes, actually,
Be your own person,
saw
or,
one of them
something,
too,
say, yeah, you
yeah.
can help me out with that one, Barbara.
Actually, I think I have one of them.
So I walked over to it and took the picture just for you folks to take a look, and,
Thank you.
so if you kind of consider, and I'm not sure what the definition in the bylaw is with regard to public art. Again, the subject of it is up to interpretation, but this is actually
I don't have-
words that you can change, and
Who can
so
change?
anybody can put up there and just change the
okay.
Yeah,
sentence.
It's
kind of like
interactive.
messy.
It's
Yeah, it looks
interactive, like,
magnetic.
like interactive.
Right.
Right.
They're creating little.
So when I looked at the words, if you look really close, you see
Stations.
some interesting words that the
Inappropriate
intention
word.
is to be positive words, but if you can put them together, you can put them into other ones that other folks may not seem as appropriate, perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, use your imagination, Joe, which I know you don't, you're pretty good.
I don't have an imagination, not at this time of the night.
It's all, so
Just
where I
get
go,
hold of the movable
yeah, so,
parts.
so the intention is good. I understand the intention, and the intention is to be positive and have good language on it, but for the youth of the world that has different language than us and can put things together differently, and you look at it and you go, oh, that's an interesting way to put something out there, which may or may not be appropriate for young children. So, I mean, a question staff is, what's approved? What can people do at that point? Because I think here what you'd probably want to do with public art, maybe there's a subcommittee that approves it, and versus people just putting up anything they want to. So I'm not sure what that is, and whether movable or changeable public art by the public is something, as we kind of, things get a little different and we're not
My
ready for it
question,
yet.
is it a sign and is it allowed?
Well, it's not a sign, because we had the discussion about a sign. A sign is something that advertises at the store, right? So it's not a sign.
Just supposed to be like interactive for people
Interactive.
Yeah,
walking around.
we don't currently have a definition of public art. As many of you have been engaged in the master plan discussions, there's been a lot of talk about public art and storytelling as well as history telling through art. And I think that there's definitely an energy to get a group together and to continue to explore. The wall, the hula hoop, it's nothing we permit, it's, you know, it's the tenants.
And it's kind of
Or
facing
the-
in towards the tenant
The
space. It
property,
doesn't
try
face
to, add
street.
some active, different things in the property, different experiences. So, I mean, to the end that, should there be a group that approves it, I mean, there's some interest in getting a public art group from Burlington together, and I mean, if that's something that we wanna.
So I think my kind of thought here is
That
that
direction.
for, maybe what we do is to condition, like we know, we're putting multiple conditions on every single one. We say, for public art, that may be a minor engineering change to it or something like that. Again, you can't, you know, put down what the content of it, but if you have something like this where people can kind of envision that the intent of it's good, but what the output and the execution of it is really not something appropriate for the space, as it turns out from a language standpoint. So you know.
Creative positioning of the word.
Yeah, in more ways than one perhaps. So,
I'm trying to find that.
yeah, take a look over to the left-hand side and you'll see some interesting
You know,
language
you
there.
would, you would think the landlord would have something to say about that, wouldn't you? I
Well,
mean,
not really, because I remember we had the jewelry person here, and that they said he was doing all sorts of stuff with the signage just to inspire the landlord, and he said landlord was not necessarily interested in that, so. So I think, so maybe just a proposal,
I
maybe.
wonder
is
who
that we-
supplied the materials.
CVS, right?
Right.
I don't know.
No, I wouldn't imagine not.
Oh, it's
No,
not
I think
CVS.
it's-
No.
I'd say it's the shop.
What's
It's
the
definitely
shop
Eden's,
class?
because they have the hula
Yeah, I mean,
hoops,
they
the
put
same.
hula hoops down near
Right.
Marshall's. They
That's
got-
true.
Right.
You got stuff
I
on the
was trying to
sidewalk, you
find
got
those-
it.
those
The
printed things
property
on
So,
owner-
I
the
guess
property
my
owner has
proposal
approved it,
is
or
that going
they
forward,
installed
'cause
it.
this is done, and I'm not sure that we have any jurisdiction over to control it, but it's just, unfortunately, it's not, what you would, probably everybody would think would be, you know, something, well, even appropriate, but you know, if it's not kept up, right, who's keeping it up?
Yeah.
And maybe there'll be some local juveniles that will just take it all down anyway, right?
Looks good, could be bad.
Yeah, it looks
Other
bad,
things-
it looks
other
good.
things in life are
It
like
currently,
that.
last I saw, it looks bad, could be good. Right? So that's where I'd like to see it.
So
but,
you rearranged the words, I'm sure, right?
I didn't touch it, because I didn't know who owns it, and, you know, who maintains it, and things like that. So maybe as a condition going forward on all these things, we just did, like the lighting and all the other stuff we put in, is to say, for public art, it's considered a minor engineering change, come before the board, and then we can figure out what they're trying to do.
We haven't even defined public art, so we really
Right.
can have a
But you
minor
know-
engineering
Right,
change
right.
for something we haven't defined.
Short term, we might just ask staff to reach out to Edens and let them know that there's been some shenanigans, and they might want to take a look at
Yeah,
what
they
the words
wanna
say right
see-
now.
Make sure the language is.
Yeah.
Well, there's an informal group, John Saxon,
Yeah.
I know Christine Brown and, you know, a few other people have
Well,
been.
maybe we can just put something in a definition somewhere of public art, or we can define it here based on what other towns have done for a definition of public art, and then we can say, for public art comes in as a minor engineering change.
That would be a good project for Elizabeth.
For whoever, right.
Oh, Liz,
So do some benchmarking.
Yeah, for
and-
Liz.
we don't want to get the ACLU involved, do we?
No.
The next item up here, Dunkin' Donut, the
So
Dunkin'
I'm not sure,
sign.
do we
Well, I'm not,
agree
I'm
with
not
that,
sure
or-
we've
Oh,
I know we
accepted
wanna- I know
your
we don't
idea to
wanna-
move on from public art.
didn't mean to cut
Have you
off.
finished up, Bill?
I've finished my comments, but
Anyone
I'd
else?
like to see some
Okay,
action out of that, yeah.
and that action you're asking for
Well,
is,
so I would say.
I was gonna reach out, or I was gonna, like Barbara, I was gonna reach out to Edens and
Okay.
tell them to be a little bit, if they
Okay.
could be
Report
aware of
back
it,
to
and
us.
kinda just,
That's one
if they
action.
could,
I'd like the idea
They
of
could-
having someone on staff research
Definition.
how other communities define public art as a step, as a first step.
The first step, and then we can say,
Done.
okay, then as conditions, we can now condition things to say, if public art is gonna be included, it comes as a minor engineering change, then we get to take a look at it and say, instead of putting it as magnets, maybe you do something permanent there, which would be nice, you know, with nice.
So it can't be abused.
I think we should have Bill be a subcommittee of one to explore this further.
All right.
And then maybe then afterwards is. if
we'll
there's a
we'll
couple-
send
if
them on
there's a-
research to other
Yeah.
parts of the world to see what they do with. for
I would
public
say,
art.
I've been to other
don't
parts of
do
the
that.
world, and you may not wanna see that either, but,
Right.
but it may then what you do, if there's a formal group, right, that's recognized by the town for the public art group, then it doesn't come to here for,
Right.
then it goes
I
to
think
there.
I think ultimately that's what we'll be
I
looking
think that would
for.
be, yeah, so kind of as we go down a path a little bit here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, it's The Duncan sign.
Yeah, so
Actually, quick question on the whole public art thing. Whatever happened with Nordblom supposed to put in their public art
we had a
piece?
meeting with them and John Sack.
We've
Front of
recently
Lifetime.
had a meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
John Sachs is looking into
Okay, good. I
finding
just wanna know
somebody.
before we move
It's
on.
happening.
You don't have to tell me details, I just wanna know it's
Yeah.
moving, thank you.
Yeah, things are
Dunkin'
moving.
Donuts sign, boy, is that thing obnoxious.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So
Is it gone?
It
Well,
moves.
comes and goes.
It
I think it comes on the week, so I did talk to the
It's on the
owner,
weekend
Did you talk to
mostly.
Andy?
Mostly
did.
on Saturdays, I think.
and I thought he was gonna make it happen, but I don't know, I guess,
Well, you get
We'll
it.
know this weekend.
yeah.
So it appears to
I
be a
talked,
weekend
I
sign.
talked to him a couple weeks ago, and I told him that it was an issue, and if the board's gonna keep talking about it, so
I thought
on
you were
public,
taking
so.
it. I saw him.
Well, the
No, I did,
people-
no, I saw him,
The
and I,
residents are talking about it too.
yeah, I know, and so, I'll give him a call like on Monday, just to emphasize.
But he
it.
almost made it seem like Duncan corporate was like dropping it off.
Yeah,
I don't
Like,
know.
he
Doesn't
wasn't
matter.
asking
No,
for
I
it.
know.
No.
They-
but I
and
told
we
him
were,
that.
we said, well, it's your site, like,
What you really have to
Show
do
up.
is preface it with, when are you coming in for your next?
Well, I told him, I'm like, you don't want the planning board talking about it at every meeting for the next 3 months, so you might wanna like, stop doing it.
So again, and maybe I'll have to ask this, so what, there's been calls, the last couple of meetings, we said, been calling this guy, and I guess somebody knows him or something, right, and shaking hands with him.
It's the son of the guy that we dealt with.
Yeah.
Just, he owns a couple in town, and he just happened to, he happened to walk into our office a couple weeks ago, so I,
Just happened to walk in the office, so.
Talking about Andy?
yes.
Yeah.
So what is the action? He says this corporate goes down, so do we write a letter, the inspector to write it to corporate, or what's kind of the?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it would if really,
Why don't you just,
well, Josh has reached out to the building department about it.
Well, the
and-
guy
Donuts
is
is a
actually delivering it
franchise,
from
right?
someplace in Arlington, someplace in Billerica. He just happens to stop there for coffee and stay 8 hours.
It's a franchise, so he owns that business.
Right.
He doesn't have to, he can stop it.
I could,
oh, maybe.
I'll give him, I'll talk to him one more time, and if nothing happens, then obviously we'll,
Can we have him before the board if
Sure.
if we see it next
Sure.
weekend?
I
this
could-
weekend?
Why
Request
don't you
him.
just, why don't you just call him
Oh, they
and have him
can't.
come into the office to
Yeah, I mean, they-
specifically discuss
They may be heavy-handed, but they can't break laws.
That's right.
Correct.
Right.
There are laws, so I mean, it's, they're.
obviously it's pretty
they're violating
offensive, and it's,
It's
Well, no,
completely
it's-
against our
Well,
It's a
zoning
moving
bylaw.
sign, it's a moving sign.
Well, the police aren't going to ticket it because it's on private property.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay.
all right.
But, okay, you're going to let them know that that
I'll let
is
'em-
not welcome in our town.
I'll put him to the fire.
Okay. Life science amendment.
So I just wanted to bring up to the board, I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and other fellow planners about really what, the life science market in Massachusetts and what's coming out of, Kendall Square, internationally, what is life science? And how is life science now kind of different than just biotechnology? And now that we've moved into kind of life science engineering, I mean, we've had medical device in Burlington for a long time, and life science kind of sits, there's a whole bunch of things that are life science. Biotechnology is part of life science. Medical device is part of life science. But now that we've really been merging kind of this manufacturing almost of biologic different things, whether it be the cutting of DNA and gene therapy, et cetera. So, but in conversation with some folks, and I think I sent you guys the article that was talking about the suburbs that are attracting life science and those that are not. But anyway, so what I'm trying to put together, and I put a placeholder in, and I'll certainly be sending out drafts to this board, is to try to figure out an amendment that, one, better defines life science for Burlington. So add a definition, add a line item in the use table, as well as really take a look at parking requirements for lab type space, since lab, often in the buildings we're seeing, we have the lab space, we have an office, and there's not a person in the lab and a person in the office there. So, how can we more accurately evaluate the impacts of buildings like that? Both from parking and potentially an FAR standpoint. So I haven't figured it all out yet, but I want to put a placeholder in for January to at least do part, if not all, of what I'm talking about. And we'd hope to advertise by November 15th meeting, so.
That's tight.
But I would like to ask, and I don't need to know right now, but I would like one or two members to be a subcommittee to kind of work with me on hashing this out a little bit.
I volunteer for that one.
I'll do it.
Jack, if I may,
And everybody can come, obviously.
since
but-
Cambridge is the epicenter, what we did previously, as I said, when we got the group together to say what we were going to allow in our aquifer district, that was, we primarily went and looked at their bylaws, because, they're the newest of the new is hitting there.
Yeah.
So that might be, Jack, if you're
Well, I
going to be
think
at
li-
a subcommittee,
I think
might be a
life
place to
science is-
start.
I think life science is changing, expanding, and I liken it to manufacturing. It's a general category, but within the category of manufacturing, you could have things that you don't want manufactured in this town and things that you do. I don't know enough about life sciences yet, and I hope to learn more. What all it encompasses, are there some things that fall under the umbrella of life science that we would want, and some things that we might not want? I don't know.
How do you,
So I think we need to look into it.
can I ask, how do you define life science?
We don't.
That's part of the
Yeah.
question.
That's part of what I want
Okay.
to
We don't know
attempt to
yet.
do.
Right. But there are companies out there when they're looking for a place to locate, and they believe they're in the life science field.
They're
they'll
looking for.
search a zoning
well,
bylaw to see if it actually exists.
Maybe, I
right?
don't know. I don't know. I guess the question is, this company that's looking for a place to land, what do they do?
And do we
What are
want to?
their requirements? What's attractive to them and what about them might or might not be attractive to
There was a
us?
company before us not too long ago that was filling syringes and vials for some other company. They were a subcontract.
They were at 99
There was
South
a,
Bedford.
they were a biologic type thing on medications. Well, to me, that's probably in the category of life sciences. We didn't
Okay,
seem to have a
yeah,
problem with
yeah,
that. Yeah, a pharmaceutical manufacturer is something else. That's a big comprehensive building unless they're doing small prototype stuff. I don't know.
So the artificial joint people, they would be considered life science, do you think?
It's a medical device or life science?
Yeah,
I
the
don't know.
problem is we don't really define
Yeah,
medical
they're-
device even. I mean,
Yeah, well,
the-
medical device to me is a manufacturing process.
Right, but the thing is, we kind of have these older uses that don't quite fit what.
Well, is Lemaitre down by Wegmans a medical device manufacturer? And are they also life sciences? Can somebody straddle two different fields? Is life science an overlay over manufacturing? I don't know.
Well, that's
I
what-
think we need to learn a
That's
lot.
what we need to, I mean, when someone opens our bylaw and says, can I locate there? Right now, they have to call us and then how do I fit into these different categories? And I think
So
we
that's
really
one of the
need
things
to-
you're gonna ask people about when you're down in Hartford tomorrow.
Right, but we really look at, okay, how do we make this clear, so these companies that we do want, that we've identified, can come here, and there's been a lot of buzz about, the 4 Burlington Woods lab special permit we did with Scott Weiss last
Really?
week. Lots of buzz. I think we're gonna see more people, thinking about that and really positioning themselves, and I think we as the town, for those industries that we do want to attract, we should identify what that is and make it clear in the bylaw what we want.
I think one way is to ask them, are you a life science business?
Yeah, so in my industry, where I work during the day, there are codes, there are federal codes. And they're NACIS codes, right? And they are very specific on to what you're doing, right? And so that may be something that, to look at in a grouping and things like that, right?
They're almost like things like an income tax form, what category,
What
number of
category,
your,
right, yeah.
work you do.
It's very,
But, yeah, so that may be a place to start.
Yeah, no, and we've already kind of started to look at this and looked at Cambridge and looked at some other things, but I didn't bring it up at the last meeting, and I probably should have, and I just wanted to bring it up at this meeting, so you guys are introduced to the topic.
interesting.
November 15th is a deadline, maybe an ambitious target, though.
No, I wanna, well, I just wanna make sure we have enough, no, November 15th is just to open the
That's
hearing with
the-
you guys.
Oh, that is not the deadline for the language for the
No,
January?
no, no.
Okay, all right.
Printing would
We'll work on
be,
the language of it.
Printing's not
But
gonna
we
be.
have to advertise
after the
something.
new year.
Oh, yeah, no,
What
we
would we
have to
be advertising?
Well, that's,
the
that's,
public hearing.
that's
for
what we need
to
to,
open.
and that's what I'd like, that's why I asked for subcommittee, I just wanna to hash out a little bit. This first draft, we advertise well enough that we can continue to evolve the conversation. But
But if
I
we
hate,
advertise something, we have to,
I,
okay.
I hate to miss January. January town meeting is the only town meeting where zoning is actually up front. And to miss an opportunity, like that, it's like, I feel like I have to do something. And I think this is very important as well.
Well, we'll be able to do it, or is that considered a special town meeting? Never mind, don't answer the question.
On that note.
Anyway, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I had another issue, if
Sure.
we're done with that one.
We're into unfinished business, new business, discussion, whatever.
I believe it's 61 South Bedford Street that is at the end of Kimball Ave, is that correct?
67.
Is it
67?
67? And anyhow, somebody had mentioned to me that Leahy moved all their PCPs
Yep,
out of the hospital.
Primary
Into
care
the
is all
building.
over there.
yep.
Yeah,
Primary
Can
care
you
and
tell me-
physical rehab,
Okay,
physical.
can you tell me what the difference is between that building and the one where the doctor's building used to be on Cambridge Street up here, just past Colonial Park? Is there a difference?
What do you
One's
mean?
an office building, I don't know. They,
What
remember,
what I'm trying to
a
say.
year or two ago, they
What's
were
the
gonna
question?
move all of them over to someplace on Middlesex
Right,
Turnpike.
right. They weren't gonna own that building.
Right.
This building, I don't know, did they buy that building?
This
What I'm
is-
trying to say is if a hospital takes a group of doctors and moves it to a building they own,
Yeah.
doesn't it become a doctor's office and not a hospital?
They don't
I don't
own
know.
67,
They don't own it yet, no,
not,
no.
yeah.
But-
What's the concern?
And not only that, but we have different parking requirements for doctors' offices.
Oh, versus. a-
Remember, we
We do.
put those in, and they're,
And we separated so we have different requirements that have always been there, and then we separated the use a while back, just because because of 172 Cambridge Street. That parking was all,
right,
was so overwhelmed with the doctor's
yeah,
offices.
so
That should.
There's a lot of designated parking at 67. You go over there and it says, Leahy, 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 Leahy. So it's,
Now, that's a good point. 'cause
and you don't have to pay.
You know, because
The parking ratio it's 5 per thousand versus 3 per thousand.
yeah,
versus
it's quite a bit
half per
different,
thousand.
yeah.
It's double.
even in the kind of the
someone going into the
transport, the
hospital,
Leahy
they park at
overflow
67
parking,
and
right,
walk
that
over
went
to the
from Verizon,
Yeah,
Northeastern.
Sure.
Now where is it? So maybe, do we connect with
If you're on
Leahy to say,
crutches, I guess, okay.
where are you moving overflow parking? Because that's, it's got to do with traffic and things like that. Is that something we can ask Leahy where their current
We can ask.
overflow
I know
parking is? 'Cause
they're
it's-
using,
it's just moving around town to where,
Verizon, they're using the
business.
lower parking lot at the
Well,
Marriott.
yeah, is that where it was? I saw somewhere and I go, boy, that's,
Do we know when they
Sorry.
moved all their northeastern parking? to?
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna say.
Verizon, remember we approved the.
The only,
But that's not enough, that's.
the only two I'm aware of in Burlington is the Marriott and, the
They
Marriott
moved-
lower lot and the Verizon building.
They're,
The
they're
original
advertising
Marriott
67
lower is
at the mall.
Verizon, do they
No,
need a
it's
special
not
permit to do
like-
that? Can they just
It's
lease
not-
that
it's-
space?
Yeah, it's not per the, per an approved site, right? It's just a parking for that application, it's not a parking lot.
I think at one time way back, Jack, I think we told them, just get as many cars as you can off-site, so people have place to park with.
Well,
Remember way
We
back
have
when?
not approved
Yeah,
any
but
offsite.
now they don't want to do that, they want you to pay, go to the garage.
You
and
remember
pay.
they were gonna go on Third Avenue and they bought that building supposedly? Instead, they went to 67.
Right,
And maybe we would have never had desktop metal, so.
that's true.
Exactly.
All right.
Sorry for.
It's just
So that's an
another
action-
quickie as far
that's
as
an action to Find out
Leahy.
where the Leahy cars are now being stored, is that, Jack, is that an action
Well,
for staff?
there was a couple of
if
hundred
it
of them at
changes.
northeastern, where did they go?
See if it changes their site, right?
I don't know, where did they go?
Are they coning off spaces at 67 or just
I
saying
have
they're
no- I
for
have no
lady
idea.
patients?
Are there
Pardon,
spaces
say
you
what?
can't park in at 67?
No, this side.
Oh, no, but it's just the parking, there's spots that say, designated for Leahy patients.
Oh.
you know, a whole section along the front. By the way, something I thought was very interesting regarding urgent care.
Yes.
There was a half-page ad in one of the local papers about this new place that it were going to be available weekends, nights, etc. We have a laboratory, and we do urgent care and so forth. And I said, another urgent care. It's Leahy. They're locating in Linfield. It said their address was.
Marketplace?
They don't want
So
people
there must be
sending-
money there. Apparently, there's a shift coming if they're going into the urgent care business.
Well,
try and get 'em out of
they
their emergency.
kind of had an urgent care, but it was weird hours, so. You could go to after-hour urgent care in their thing on the
Leahy
weekends
itself, right?
and
Yeah.
evenings. So
They just call it,
have an appointment.
and yeah, I just got a thing on it. It's ambulatory hours, or what they call it. It's starting at like 5 o'clock, and I ended up there one day. I just went in, and they line you up, and
They're all over the place. I mean, they have one at Baldwin Park now, Leahy Winchester's / Winchester.
that's a competitive.
Yeah, good question.
No, Winchester's not a competitor.
No, not anymore.
I bring it
They
in.
own, they,
Motion to adjourn?
second,
Been moved and seconded to adjourn, all in favor?
aye.
Would you
At
say motion for adjournment?
10:20,
Don't forget to sign the
so
plan.
10:42.
I'm surprised.